the Central Business District lost a pillar of its community. The store owned by Elena McKinnon is a store called La Casita. It is across from the post office, and Elena ran that store for about 50 years, and she died this week. We are all very saddened by it, so if you'll all take a moment of silence just so that we can remember her. Thank you very much. We are going to proceed to public comment, and I'm very excited to say that there are many changes this evening. To begin with, we have tried to make the public comment in this room more comfortable for everyone. So we made some small changes, like moving the podium over here so that the speaker does not have their back to the audience. We put a clock up here so that they can the speaker can monitor their time so they're not surprised. We have begun to improve the sound in the room, and there are more improvements to follow, because we know that sometimes when we speak or when somebody's speaking from the microphone, people in the audience cannot hear because the acoustics are tricky. Just as importantly, this will be our first hybrid access meeting, and this will continue indefinitely. So for whoever cannot make it to a public meeting, from now on, beginning tonight, they will be able to contact us by Zoom or by phone and engage in public comment with us. And here's how it's going to work. Public comment is generally 40 minutes long in the beginning of the evening, and we allow each person to speak for 3 minutes. As we gauge this, we will be modifying it from time to time because we haven't done it yet. But we're going to begin by extending public comment in the beginning of the night as necessary. So the first 10 people who wish to speak from the audience will go first. After which, the next 7 people who call in or are on Zoom by remote access will be next. If you have entered the waiting room, and I see that we have quite a number of people in our waiting room already because we have a list here, please raise your hand now so that you can get in the queue, and we can keep you in just a moment. Oh, no, I'm sorry. This is for the people on Zoom have to raise their hand. Yes. Those of you in the audience, when we say public comment, will go to the podium. See, I told you there are going to be some bumps in the road, and already we've come across. Hopefully, that's the largest, but I don't think so. So please bear with us as we work our new system. I want to give a big shout out to Siobhan Winograd, who brought to our attention and made great recommendations for public comment in the room. And another big shout out to Dylan Hansen, who's in the back of the room tonight, who made all the magic happen, and who is continuing to make additional improvements so that we will have a great public comment, because we need to hear from you. As always, I ask that all of your comments be respectful of your neighbors, of your friends, and of all of us. Thank you. So I am now opening public comment. So if you'd like, please go to the podium, state your name and address.
You all can probably line up against the wall.
Good evening. My name is Paul Coopersmith. My address is 373 Meadowbrook Avenue here in Ridgewood. I have been a resident and a homeowner in Ridgewood for over 30 years. I've been an active member of the Ridgewood soccer community for the last 20 years. I've coached both for the Maroons and RSA when both my son and daughter were players. I've also been a member of the Ridgewood Men's Soccer Club for the same 20 years. The club has been in existence for close to 30 years and has been an active and competitive organization, winning several United Soccer League of New Jersey Championships. Representing the village of Ridgewood, the club received the Best Sportsmanship Award last season. The vast majority of our club members have a similar story to mine, having been active members and volunteers in the Ridgewood Maroons, RSA, Ridgewood High School soccer community throughout our club history. We are soccer enthusiasts, ambassadors, and role models for the kids. Unfortunately, lack of field availability has been an ongoing issue for the club, limiting the number of teams fielded over the years and forcing many of our games to be played away from Ridgewood at neutral sites. Soccer is a sport on the rise in the United States. There was recently a study done by the Aspen Institute called Project Play. The report is titled State of Play 2022, and I can provide a link to the study if you'd like. Here is a direct quote from that report. Soccer is the third most popular team sport for kids, rebounding with a 20% increase in 2021 for kids aged 6 to 12 and returned to pre-pandemic levels. The report also indicates that although baseball remains the #1 participation sport for youths aged 6 to 12, youth participation in the combination of soccer, football, and lacrosse combined, in fact, is 10% greater than baseball. I'm here tonight representing specifically our men's club, but also the soccer community at large. As previously stated, the field availability has historically been an issue for the entire community, not just soccer, and the addition of another full-sided turf field at Shedler Park would only help solve our collective problem. A full-sided field would not only help Ridgewood soccer, but a full-sided turf field set up like what we've done at Maple would also be used for lacrosse, football, and field hockey, and I think space utilization for the greatest number of athletes is our ultimate goal. We need to be sure we prioritize the opportunities for maximum participation. Based on this study and Ridgewood's ongoing field availability issue for both kids and adults, we believe that having an additional full-sided turf field for the combined use of soccer, football, lacrosse, and field hockey is the best option for our community. Thank you for your time.
Thank you very much, Paul.
Hello, my name is Lauren Cuneo. I live at 373 Mountain Ave. I stand here wearing many hats as a supporter of the development of the Shedler property. I'm a mother of 3 athletes in town, ages 15, 13, and 10, who all participate in the Maroons Soccer Club and Ridgewood Lacrosse Association. I am a Maroons Soccer Club board member and have been for 7 years. I have coached and managed teams for the Maroons Soccer Club for many years. One of my more recent board roles has given me a unique perspective on the issue we are all here to discuss. For 2 years, I have helped schedule training sessions for the Maroons Club, which has 522 players from ages U8 through high school, all Ridgewood residents. We cannot find enough field space for our teams, and this is only one of the many organizations who use the fields. Last spring, we had 2 teams participating in practicing in an area that has earned the infamous nickname Vets West. Many of you know it well, the bumpy, sloped patch of grass scattered with trees wedged between the police station, a playground, and Linwood Ave. We've had games played at the Glen School Field, where the soccer field overlaps the softball infield, causing a serious risk of injury due to the unlevel ground. All fields in town are being overused. For example, in the spring and fall, we often have 4 teams sharing half of the Citizens Park field. This results in most of the grass being destroyed within the first 2 weeks of the season. Thereafter, we simply play on dirt. There is a field shortage in Ridgewood, it is clear. We need more open space for our youth to play freely, for adults to play freely, for organized youth teams and organized adult teams. We need high, dry land that everyone in Ridgewood can utilize. As a representative from the Maroons Soccer Club, strongly supporting the development of the Shedler property into a multi-purpose field for use of, but not limited to, a walking path, a playground, a bathroom facility, and not a grass field, a full-size turf sports field with permanent lights. If cost should be of an issue, please reach out to the sports organizations within this community. The Maroon Soccer Club is prepared to provide financial support should turf and permanent lights be built, just as we did when the permanent light towers went up at Maple. Please consider this development with strong support from myself as a parent, a coach, and a member of the Maroon Soccer community. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
I guess it's going to be a consistent theme tonight. I am Carolyn Holt, 249 Mountain Avenue. I've been a resident for 18 years, and I came tonight to talk about the fields, and specifically about the Shedler property. I have 3 children who have enjoyed playing soccer in town since kinder kickers, and have all played high school soccer. I still have my youngest on the Ridgewood High School soccer team. I've never thought that the town fields were in particularly good shape. Some of that comes from insufficient maintenance, but I have come to learn that a big part of their suboptimal condition is the result of overuse. One of the many great things about Ridgewood is our active community, which offers sports for all ages all year long. Most of those sports require fields, and as I have learned from attending field committee meetings, our town simply doesn't have enough field space to support all the demands for a town this size. So they do their best to accommodate, but everyone but the conditions of our fields pay the price. The other major field issue is flooding. All of our turf fields and our largest grass field are impacted. Unfortunately, the fields that flood the most are the full-size fields, and they're needed for middle school and high school games, and it negatively impacts those athletes. I have to admit, when I attend other high school soccer games in neighboring towns, I get field envy because they have better fields and facilities, and their athletes aren't worrying if their season's going to come to an end because a major storm has been announced. And just 2 years ago, when there was flooding at the high school fields, we had to play most of our games away, and the fields that we had use of to train just were suboptimal. So with that as a backdrop, I looked at the current Shedler plan, and I have to ask, why would we not put more field space on that property? We need a full-size field that's not in a flood zone, appropriate for middle school, high school games, as well as, these other teams that are mentioned. Property and space are a scarcity in this town, and they're expensive. And when you look at the plans, I think the best use of that space for our community would be more field space. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Carolyn.
Good evening. David Refkin, 401 Westina Terrace, and I chair the Green Ridgewood Committee. Next week, the Village Council will consider an amendment to an ordinance related to Green Ridgewood and increasing the number of citizen members from 6 to 8. I'm not going to be able to be here next week, but I wanted to have some comments about that. So Green Ridgewood, of course, serves as an advisory committee for the Village Council on a range of environmental issues. We have 6 citizen members as well as 5 liaisons, including the deputy mayor. The citizen members are appointed for 3-year terms, and the Green team, responsible for the Sustainable New Jersey Award application, also reports to Green Ridgewood. Over the last few years, issues around flooding, note Exhibit A out in the parking lot right now, sustainability, resiliency, and environment are growing in importance. Of course, many parts of the state had impacts from Superstorm Sandy, and we are seeing more and more extreme weather and substantial negative impacts related to cold, heat, rain, hurricane intensity, on and on. It seems like every day we hear about another event where somebody says on TV, "I've never seen this before." And certainly here in Ridgewood, flooding is a significant issue, and it has also led to extensive property damage. And these are, frankly, health and safety risks for the citizens of the village. So, of course, the Ridgewood Master Plan implementation the process for that is now starting. And Green Ridgewood has recently reorganized itself around the implementation, and we've set up subcommittees focused on recycling and resource management, which frankly is a financial opportunity for the village, green building and sustainability, resilience, flooding, and stormwater, as well as committees on related to Earth Day, communications, and the Green Team. Each subcommittee has a knowledgeable and committed leader, and they are already starting to meet as individual subcommittees. So our interest is really in providing the appropriate input and expertise and do the research that's necessary, and to work with the planning board and with the village council. To do our job thoroughly and to do it well, we think we need a larger group of people to address the challenges and the opportunities that Ridgewood has, and we have citizens in the village who are interested in joining Green Ridgewood. So we want to provide the type of guidance that will enable the planning board and the village council to address the challenges as well as the opportunities that the village faces in the future. Thank you.
Thank you, David.
Hi, my name is Bill Bond. I live at 335 Kensington Drive. I'm an 18-year resident of the village, and I'm here also the Executive Vice President of the Ridgewood Baseball Softball Association. And I'm here to address the board on behalf of the organization. But first, I'd like to congratulate our new members to the Town Council on a successful election. The RBSA is the largest youth sports organization in the village. 1,351 unique participants in our program last year. And I'll repeat that, 1,351 unique participants. Some participants do play travel and rec programs. We have programs that range from kickball up through high school, and we have an all-star program for special needs, which we're uniquely proud of. We have partnered with the village for quite some time, and I want to put that in context. Over the last 3 years, as it pertains to field and field-related items, 2020, $49,000, 2021, approximately $50,000 and $83,000 last year. So when you look at all the sports organizations in town, we put our money where our mouth is. And we have a great relationship working with the Parks and Rec Department. And we would urge the Town Council to look for ways to expand greater field utilization and increase new fields. We have lost field usage. Other sports in town have actually gained utilization through lights, through turf. We've lost fields. We've lost at least 3 fields. Of unique and most important is another 60-90 field. People who in this room may not recall, we lost 2 fields when the track was built at BF. So we would urge the Town Council to look for ways to better utilize our fields. As has been mentioned by other people at the podium, due to the location of the fields of flooding, it's become an increased issue. So again, we would like to continue to partner with the village, but we want to urge you to look for ways to increase field utilization, specifically a 60-90 baseball field. Thank you.
Thank you, Bill.
Hi, my name's Karen Shaner. I live at 251 Lot Road. I'm a mom to 2 teenage female athletes who are very involved in town and high school sports, particularly soccer and lacrosse. So everybody knows that it's really important to every person's mental and physical well-being to get exercise, especially the children in Ridgewood who need to alleviate stress. The lack of fields and green space in Ridgewood is why I'm here to support the building of the Shedler property. Ideally, it should be developed into a full-sided field and should be turfed and have permanent lights for the maximum use of the space. So I personally have 3 firsthand perspectives when it comes to sports and needing more fields in this town. So the first one is, like a lot of you guys, I've been a parent coach for RSA Maroons Club for over 9 years, and every year I have to manually schedule, with someone in this audience, 10 home games. So oftentimes that's near impossible. We finally get the use of fields. We can't do it during the day because there's too many other games going on, so they let us use the Board of Ed fields or Maple. But as you all know, due to the flooding the last couple of years, it was impossible to have games there. Even after the flooding went away, the after effects from the flooding were frankly disgusting and dangerous. So we tried to get on grass fields. Grass fields are unusable and in such poor shape that we've had other teams refuse to play like on the spot due to their dangerous conditions, such as Hawes, Vets, Glen. We even have to limit the number of times a week each team can practice due to lack of field space, and we're losing players to other programs with more field offerings. And when we do have practice, we're only allotted a tiny portion of the field with no goals for shooting, and it's quite frankly dangerous with lacrosse, soccer, everybody there. So it's really hard to stay competitive when the other towns have loads of options for field space. I'm also an active athlete and supporter of unorganized sports. I play adult pickup soccer each week, and often we're driving around trying to find a tiny corner of a field, and we really can't get on fields if you try to drive around on a Sunday morning or a weeknight, especially when the lights don't go on at night in the winter. And then lastly, I just wanted to share a personal story. A couple of weeks ago, my daughter tried to go practice on a field. The Board of Ed locked up their fields, and then she tried to sneak on, which is probably illegal, but then all of the goals were also locked to the fences. So I just personally found it really sad that the grass was frozen, she couldn't go practice with her friends or by herself a sport when we're trying to get our kids off the phone, and she couldn't find a spot in Ridgewood to do that. So the bottom line is we need a large-sided field in Shedler that's not in a flood zone with permanent lights, just like Glen Rock and Wyckoff was able to do. I think turfing is worth the investment so that all the sports can use it with the different lines in the field like Maple, and we can all work together to help fund this personally and through the different town organizations. Thank you.
Thank you, Karen.
Richard Brooks, 777 East Ridgewood Avenue. I'm presently the chairman of the Parks, Recreation, and Conservation Board. In 2009, when the Shedler property was purchased, Barack Obama was the president, Joe Biden was the vice president, and I had a little bit of gray hair on my sideburns. One of those guys retired, one of those guys got a promotion, I just got gray hair. I'm thrilled to death that the council is finally shining a light on the Shedler development. It's about time. The other thing that's changed a whole lot since 2009 is recreation needs of Ridgewood residents have exploded, especially in the last 3 years as a result of the pandemic. But before that, we were strong. We've always had a field shortage. We've always had to scramble to make do. Making do is not good enough, and I think this council recognizes that. Our recreation and sports needs are more diverse than they've ever been. We have more people participating on all ages, genders going crazy. Girls football, girls flag football, boys lacrosse, soccer, everybody. I can go on and on about the kids and the adults who use these fields and need to use these fields on a daily basis. We spend a lot more time outside. We don't all play sports. We need passive recreation too. We need to deliver that. I have two things to ask of the council. Focus on this like a laser beam and develop the best park you can for the needs that we have. That's the first thing. Number two, build it as fast as you can. Thank you.
Thank you, Rich.
Good evening. Yusan, 420 Racetrack Road. So I want to put a little different angle. I'm come here to support the Shedler property development. I'm so excited. Last week when I'm a member of the Open Space Committee, and it's been a couple of years since since I entered the Open Space Committee, I know we have the Shedler property. We're under development. I was at the end of the ad hoc committee, and we thought everything's going to go well, but it stopped, and then COVID happens. As a matter of fact, it's been, I think, 5 years from now. So I would like we get it to start. I think after we purchase the Shedler property, it's been 12, 13 years already. It's time to get started. Once we start, then the wheels are going to spin. And I know as a project, you always have something to change down the road. But the important piece is we want to get it started. As you can see, we have so many people over here for the same cause today. I think it can show we have abundance of support. In Ridgewood, as a citizen, we want another field we want something for our citizens for the recreations. Because our population is growing, our need is growing, and we can't afford to wait for another 12 years. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much.
Good evening. My name is Fred Jubitz, 56 Hermann's Place. I'm a lifelong resident of Ridgewood. I'm also vice chairman of the town's Villages Open Space Committee. I'm here tonight to report that the Open Space Committee reviewed the plan at our last meeting last week. The overall consensus by our committee was that the plan was thoughtful. If there was one comment, it was that the field playing space could be larger. Our other comment and suggestion is that we encourage the village council to act with urgency. As it's been stated earlier tonight, it's been well over 10 years since we had the support to purchase the property. We encourage you to act with urgency, as was evidenced in the town's plan that has just been approved. There are so many demanding needs for open space, for playing time, for fields, and we just want to encourage you to move quickly and thoughtfully. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Fred.
Good evening. Put my glasses on. I'm Jennifer Devlin Burke, 400 Lincoln Avenue in Ridgewood. I am the mother of 3 school-age children, an 11th grader, a 10th grader, and an 8th grader, and they have all been involved in our town and sports programs for many years. We've moved to Ridgewood over 14 years ago. Before I forget, I just want to thank you all for your service. I am very grateful to have people who I've learned and read about and know personally, who I believe have the best interests of Ridgewood in their heart. So I'm really grateful for that. I'm also really grateful to see on the agenda the discussion of the water issues and the carcinogenics in the water and hopefully the projects that will be started soon, because as a citizen, that is of utmost importance to me. Another thing that's of utmost importance, another wellness and health issue, are our fields. So I would like to support the development of the Shedler property finally into a proper sports venue with at least one full-sided field, turfed. I, like so many other Ridgewood residents, have given up all hope that actual meaningful progress and improvements for the sole benefit of us, the citizens, and not just developers in this town, can actually ever be accomplished. It feels like whenever a truly innovative or positive plan arises, the naysayers hijack this conversation and roadblocks are put up. A few instances come to mind: upgrading the Graydon Pool into a real clean, hard-bottom pool facility that could have served as a real social hub for our town, expanding the library with a true performing arts theater and with a large teen center for studying and socializing for our youth who have no place to hang out, an upgraded and expanded Ridgewood High School building, which is busting at the seams with over 1,800 students. And of course, the constant circular conversation of upgrading, turfing, moving, expanding our town and sports fields. I can't tell you the number of times I've had conversations with people who are new to our town or have come to work as coaches in our town. They are always astounded and perplexed by our field situation. Unlike many other surrounding towns, we seem to not just get our act together and make comprehensive improvements. Instead, we use Band-Aids to address the problem as the years fly by, leaving us with the same overcrowded fields that turn into dust bowls or closed fields due to continuous and predictable flooding, leaving contaminants and dust behind for our children to inhale. And I have 2 children who have asthma, so this is particularly concerning. Over the last 3 years, since my oldest children have played sports at Ridgewood High School, I would venture to guess that at least 40 to 50% of their soccer and lacrosse practices and games have been canceled or changed because of field issues. Sadly, we have become numb to the crazy and the game of field musical chairs, and there's also very negative cascading effects on all of us. I'll be quick. It is time now to make meaningful improvements to our fields. And why not now? If we're going to do it, please do it right. And don't waste our time another 10 years. There are thousands of children and parents and physically active citizens in this town that would greatly benefit from additional turf fields and recreational spaces.
Jennifer?
It's time for common sense change and reasonableness. So I hope that you'll take back Ridgewood and make this happen. Thank you.
Thank you so much for your comments, Jennifer.
That
And-
was 10.
Yes, that was 10 people. So first of all, I'm so excited that there are so many people out here participating in this discussion, which is so important because no decisions have been made going forward. So we appreciate everyone's comments. And now we're going to begin the hybrid remote access portion of our meeting. And Denise is first up in line. Denise?
Yep, I'm here.
If you would state your name and address, please.
Yes, Denise Lima, 319 East Glen Ave.
And your comments.
Great, just wanted to make sure you can hear me.
We can hear you, and congratulations on being our very first remote access participant.
Thank you. It was easy. It was great. Great to see everybody. Great to hear everybody in the audience. So I appreciate the flexibility in you guys driving this. I know, Siobhan, it's been a long time, so very good. I love that everybody has a problem. It's a good problem that we have so many kids that need extra fields. I think it's great. When I looked at the Shedler site plans, it doesn't have anything about really measurements. So I would just ask as we move forward that we look at the measurements of the size of the field in relation to the house, and how that's all going to work if we go to expand it, where the parking might be inside the Shedler property as well as on both sides of the street. So we should take in consideration that if we were to expand the field, what would that do to parking? And then most notably is traffic and safety. So expanding the field just means even more people coming off of that ramp at 50 miles an hour. You would need 175 feet before somebody can stop. And it's hard to discern from the site plan where the entrance is and how far away that is from the ramp. So I think if we could just add some measurements to the site plans and look at it from a safety perspective, parking perspective, especially if you're going to go to increase it, what would that would do for the town and the people that live there?
Thank you very much, Denise. Next up in our queue is Catherine Schmidt. Good evening, Catherine.
Okay, I think I'm unmuted now. Can you hear me?
We can.
Okay, Catherine Schmidt, 123 South Irving Street. And I've often stood at this podium in person to advocate for better acoustics and advocate for hybrid meetings. And so I'm just here to say thank you. Thank you so much for making this happen.
You're welcome, and thank you for participating. Next up is Hans-Jürgen Lehmann. Hans, good evening. Are you there, Hans? Are you muted, Hans? Hans? So far, nothing. All right, let's skip ahead to the next person. And actually, I see many people in the queue, but I don't see hands raised. But I will go down the list. So we have a caller from. Hold on. last four numbers are 6676. And ladies and gentlemen in the queue, if you want to participate, you need to raise your hand. So if you'll click on that portion of the screen, then we can get you in the queue to speak. Wait. The next person with their hand raised is Lillian and Lee.
Okay, can you hear me?
We can hear you, Lillian. If you'd state your name and address.
It was my name when I went to Cornell, but I went back to my birth name afterwards. We could hear Hans, although you couldn't hear him. This system has to be tweaked a little bit.
As we said, there would be a few bumps in the road, so please bear with us. So state your name and address, please.
250 North Maple Avenue. Full name Lillian Blood. And I just wanted to say, I also am so happy we have hybrid meetings. I was all set to come tonight, but couldn't make it, and I am glad that we are able to talk to you and you can hear us. So I'm so pleased.
Thank you so much, Lillian. We appreciate your comments. Let's circle back to Hans and see if we can loop him in this time. Hans, are you there? Nothing so far. We'll catch you next time, Hans. And I see no one else who has their hand raised in the queue, so I'll give it another moment because we're all new at this. And then I will close. Hans.
Can you?
We can hear you, Hans.
Wow.
Come on down.
So it's so funny. Every time I talk, your picture disappears.
Oh, you should tell my wife that trick.
Yeah, right. Good evening. Hans-Jürgen Lehmann, 234 Union Street. I'm really grateful that we're able to do this remotely, even with the little glitches along the way. But I have a different issue that I wanted to talk about. It has to do with the Citizen Safety Committee. Many months ago, I think it was September of last year, I appeared before the Citizen Safety Committee to talk about some safety issues on Union Street. The issues concern people going down the street the wrong way, since it's a one-way, people driving up the street from Maple to Dayton like it was a raceway, and there are no markings at the beginning of Union Street at the Maple end that designate a crosswalk going from one corner of Union to the other side of Union. And I've never heard anything since, and I'm just wondering what I should do as a resident who feels somewhat dissatisfied with this particular process. You know, when I was there, the village engineer, Chris Rudeshauser, was at the meeting, as he is always, and you know, as I made the comments that I made, he made some comment that I took as a snide comment about, oh, I won't have my striper tomorrow. Well, that's all well and good, but there hasn't been a striper in 3 or 4 months now to do any of it, and I haven't seen any kind of efforts to make Union Street safer. We have a number of families living on the street now who have small children, and I think it behooves the village to do something about it. Thank you for listening.
Thank you so much, Hans. Next up is Sarab.
Hello.
Good evening, Sarab.
Good evening. This is Saurabh Dani, 390 Bedford Road in Ridgewood. and thank you for the opportunity to speak. And I wanted to talk about some curbs at some of our schools. I don't know, Mayor, if you had a chance to check your email. It was just sent a couple of hours ago, so maybe you were busy. But the way I understand it is if the curbs are broken, they are responsibility of the village, but the village will not repair them until that street is being repaved. So I just wanted to bring that up to the council's attention, that we have some school zones where the curb is broken, it's a safety hazard, and the current policy would not replace that curb until it's turned to replace that street or repave the street. So I just want to bring it to your attention and request that you look at that policy again. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Sarab. I see no other hands raised in the queue. I'll give it a moment to see if anyone wants to participate. Seeing none, I will close public comment, and we will proceed to the manager's report.
Okay. Council Chat is a new event which will start Saturday, February 4th from 9 a.m. to 11 a.m. at the Village Hall courtroom right here. Please call for a reservation, 201-670-5500, extension 2207. Walk-ins are welcome. However, reservations have priority. This will be held every first Saturday of the month between 9 and 11 a.m., and there will be 2 council members here at that time to listen to your questions or your concerns. So again, I would recommend you make the reservation just so that you can be seen at the time you want to be seen. If you don't, you can certainly come during that time frame, but again, those with reservations will be seen first. A summer job fair will be held on Wednesday, March 8th from 6 to 8 p.m. in the Anzuzi Youth Center in the Community Center, located here on the ground floor of Village Hall. It will be focused on young adults ages 16 and older for summer employment. There will be a wide variety of employment opportunities presented. You will be able to speak with supervisors who can answer your questions. You'll also be able to learn requirements for each position, and help will be available to review candidates' resumes and teaching candidates how to interview properly. Christmas tree pickup continues Tuesdays on the east side and Thursdays on the west side until January 31st. They must be undecorated and left at the curb. Wreaths and garlands will be collected with garbage. No plastic bags, please. You may also drop off your Christmas tree in the section of the Graden Pool lot designated for Christmas trees. New recycling programs. We've had this for a while, but the recycling foam packaging, it's the hard foam that comes with like TVs and things like that. Bring your foam to Ridgewood Recycling Center, and we will densify it on site and sell it to a New Jersey manufacturer. We also are recycling vegetable cooking oil. Call the recycling center to learn the details of the program. 201-670-3373. The 2023 village calendars have arrived and were mailed to each Ridgewood residents. If you do not receive a calendar, please call Village Hall and we will mail one to you. Village Council upcoming meetings are broadcast live from Village Hall courtroom on the village website and Channel 34 on FiOS. They're also available on YouTube. Our upcoming meetings are February 1st, February 22nd, and March 1st are all work sessions beginning at 7:30 p.m., and February 8th is our public meeting at 8 o'clock p.m. I do want to mention that the call-in and the login for the hybrid access to these meetings will be the same for every single meeting. So once you have it, save it in your phone, save it on your refrigerator. It'll be the same for every single one. Thanks.
Thank you, Heather. Let's go to council reports. Siobhan?
Sure. So I have quite a few reports. Last week on January 18th, a group of us met with the Board of Ed regarding the Master Library. And what the Master Library is a third-party application to handle the scheduling of the fields. The Board of Ed purchased this program. They've been running it, so it's fields and facilities. You know, if you're a Girl Scout leader and you want to use a gym, if you're a coach and you want to use a field. Because our fields are often shared as a resource and the general taxpayer does not, it's invisible. You know, we are running school events on town fields. I met to see the service and see how it works so the village could come on, because it makes the most sense to probably have the end user, being the citizen, have the same, if you want a field, you could go into one area. So Master Library is a proposal. We're following up with the village manager and our Parks Committee, and it seems to be the direction of the future. Currently, this is a very manual process, and we'd look to have it automated, and it will make field scheduling fairer, more balanced, and more accessible. On the 20th of January, I met with the Access Committee, and we went over several things. First of all, the Access Committee was looking to have more information publicly available, which has occurred. They wanted their minutes posted online, which I'm grateful to our staff because they've done that. So they've cleared that. They wanted to also explore advocacy for when people who are special needs and therefore have state entitlements decide to get married. And this is an issue in the community because, they receive state entitlements, and the marriage sometimes can intervene with that. So it's a very interesting discussion. There's some state law that they're looking to advocate for, and I'll be reporting back on that. The Shade Tree Commission was canceled, so I met with a subgroup, and we went over several critical things. We went over the 3 categories of where our money was spent last year. There was a big expenditure last year with shade trees, and that's a good thing. We went over the status of where we were with the Central Business District. You've seen a lot of the plantings there. There's still a little bit of money there. We went over the plantings of the emerald ash borer and the removal of those trees. So the emerald ash borer is a really big problem because it's a bug, and it infests ash trees, which is part of our big population. It makes the trees brittle and therefore dangerous, and we have to remove them so it's not as risky. It was a very good meeting. We were very grateful to our CFO for providing us information. And then last night, I went to a very robust Parks and Rec meeting at the stable, which was very interesting. First of all, the Parks Committee is doing a really good job of promoting that we need people to work at Graydon. Obviously, across the country, we've seen a labor shortage, particularly teenagers don't work the same way. Lifeguards are a rarity. I'm sure it was national news last year, and it affected us locally. The staff at the Parks Department is really trying to get the word out. Whoever wants to work, there is a job. Lifeguards are very coveted. I saw a lot of teenage moms. If you want to get your kid out of the house and earning some cash during break, it might be a good idea to do the certification. So a significant amount of time was spent on that and how we're going to amplify that so we don't run into a shortage. We also reviewed the Shedler plan, which will go into the discussion relatively soon, and again, the master library. So all these meetings are subcommittee meetings, are all open to the public. If anybody ever wishes to come, they're listed on the calendar, and I think that's it, because you're going to report on the floods. So. No, not the sub, but the actual meeting, the committee meetings, like Parks and Rec and Fields, are on the actual calendar.
Great. Thank you, Siobhan. Evan?
Thanks so much. So I had the privilege last night of attending the first library committee that I was invited to. I want to thank the entire committee for the warm welcome they gave me. Really impressive group of folks doing some really, really incredible amount of work. I know we're going to get some stuff out in terms of events they have planned going forward. Would really encourage everyone to pay attention to that. Also had an opportunity the previous week to meet informally with several members of the Historic Preservation Committee. We are very much in need of additional members and additional help. If you're interested in the history of Ridgewood, of preserving the character of the village, we'd really encourage you to reach out to the clerk, reach out to me directly. We really want to revitalize that committee, but we're really looking for as much support as we can get for the Historical Preservation Committee. And finally, it was really privileged to be able to attend the AAPI Lunar New Year event. Really amazingly well done. The biggest problem they had was that it was too successful. They had too many people, but it was just such a gift, I think, to the rest of us here in Ridgewood to be able to see another culture and really be a part of their celebration. It was remarkably well run, really well put together, and just a gem of a thing to do. On a related note, I do want to personally thank the Ridgewood Police. As all of you may know, there was a horrific shooting the night before at another Lunar New Year event in California. Everybody was on edge a bit. Ridgewood Police showed up. They were respectful, but it was clear there was a presence there. Really lended, I think, a lot of comfort to the folks that were there. I remember several years ago, after the Tree of Life shooting, Ridgewood Police did the same thing for the Jewish community at Temple Israel. Was really, really pleased to see that the police responded in a similar vein here. While I wish we lived in a world where such precautions were not necessary, I know I feel very privileged to live in a place like Ridgewood where our police are really tuned and responsive to those type of needs of the village. So I really want to just thank them as well as the rest of the Asian community for just doing a wonderful, wonderful event.
Thank you so much, Evan. Lorraine?
Thank you, Paul. The Cash Rochelle Committee met on January 11th. This year, they are celebrating 65 years of music under the stars. So they're going to be having concerts on Tuesdays and Thursdays from June 1st to August 10th. Now, typically in the past, all the concerts started at 8:30, but they were able to work with, I'm not sure, somebody on the Parks Department or Fields Committee or whatever, in the month of July and the first 2 weeks in August, just on Thursdays, the concerts are going to start at 7:30. And this kind of gave the Shell Committee an ability to go out and hire some really big bands. So they're going to, for seven weeks on Thursdays, it's going to start at 7:30. They're going to have bands like the Nerds. They're going to have a Bruce Springsteen tribute band. They're going to have a Grateful Dead band. So it's going to be a very exciting year at the Shell. Through the month of June, it's still going to be like normal, Tuesday and Thursdays at 8:30. Let's see, what else? Oh, for the first time this year, they're also going to be doing a community donation drive. All donors will be listed on the website, and donations of $50 and up will be listed on the community donation board, which will be posted at the Shell. Stay tuned for more information about being able to donate, and I just want to say, if you've never been there, it's fabulous. Go down on a Tuesday or Thursday night, bring your lawn chair. It's really wonderful, and we are so lucky to have something like the Shell in Ridgewood, and I hope that everybody will donate a little bit. No, $10, $50, $500, whatever. Every little bit helps. The Citizen Safety Advisory Committee met on January 19th. The Franklin Ave corridor paving has been completed, and we look forward to the continuing upgrades for safety and signals on Franklin Avenue. This has been years in progress with the county, and hopefully they're going to continue getting this done. Safe routes to school construction of sidewalks will also hopefully occur in 2023. We're waiting on other people as well for that, but this has been years in the making, and they say that 2023 is the year. The design process for the continuation of the Glen Avenue sidewalks is ongoing, and it'll be in this year's budget, so hopefully it'll be approved, and the rest of the Glen Avenue will have sidewalks. There was a discussion about site triangle obstructions, and everybody's encouraged to report locations for review to the engineering department to expedite a resolution for any site triangle that's in question. Engineering was also asked to consider the addition of in-street pedestrian crossing sign at the intersection of Franklin Turnpike and Nagel Street, because there have been some issues there. A resident also came and brought up a safety issue at the intersection of Bogert and East Glen. He said at night coming home from work, the lighting is just not good. It's dark, and it's very dangerous to cross East Glen at that area, as well as by Fairfield. Those two intersections back to back are very dark. So Officer Torino was there. He's currently working with PSE&G on something called Operation Bright Idea, which is to bring brighter light to some intersections. So he's going to see what he can do about putting either Bogert and Glen or Fairfield and Glen on the list to get brighter, better visibility. And we also did, if you're listening, we did have an update on Union Street. And if I could look at my phone on my notes, which I'm not allowed to look at my phone, what we said, but I mean, I don't have it in my notes, so I'm sure it was just, it's winter time, and they have to wait till the weather gets warmer in order to do the striping. But Chris from engineering is here, and hopefully when he comes up later, he can give us an update on the Union Street markings. Next CSAC meeting is February 16th, and that's all I have. Thank you.
Thank you, Lorraine. Pam?
Thank you. I'd like to echo what Evan said. The Lunar New Year celebration was really great. We got to see performers from our communities in Ridgewood representing Japan, China, India, Pacific Islands, and it was really well done, and the food was terrific. The planning board had its reorganization meeting last week, and they voted for Richard Joel to be the chair again, and Diane O'Brien is the vice chair. Also, what came up is a discussion about the zoning board's annual report from 2021, in which they had 5 points that the council and the planning board need to address to clarify some ordinances regarding how wide can a driveway be, can a driveway be circular on a small lot, also setbacks using minimum maximum calculations rather than a strict setback. Porches. Can porches be added to homes where right now it's not allowed, but it really does help the look of a street and is in keeping with the look of our town. So there are 5 points in that report, and I think you've all seen the report. What the planning board asks is that the council give them some direction. Can they go ahead and have the planner for the planning board draft up proposed ordinances? So how do you all feel about that?
I personally think that that's a great way to go. They can come and present it to us. Matt, your thoughts?
Don't know if I got that memo. I may have been left off of it, but you can't vote tonight, but certainly you can decide to take a look at it, discuss it, and then give some direction after that, so when we have the opportunity to go forward on it. But that's the way we got to work it. In the meantime, I'll take a look for it.
They don't want to vote. They just want to know. The planning board is just asking if the planner can be used in that way, to start it at the planning board and then send it to the council. So I don't know that we have to do a resolution for that. I mean, I'll defer to you, obviously.
No, you don't need a resolution, but to decide that that's what you want to do as a group, to make any decisions such as that, you do need to be able to take an action or at least direct that. So the new municipal land use law would enable the planning board to do that on their own and at least get that started, and we could join in or at least give some direction later.
Well, they're kind of asking us to make the initial okay. We're not making a decision.
Well, why don't we do this? We have a meeting next week. I'll hopefully get the memo from somebody or the email from somebody by next week. We'll take a look at it. I'll give you my thoughts with regard to it.
We did see this at the council in November of 2021. There is no 2022 annual report from the zoning board yet. They don't change much from year to year.
Well, they do a new one every year. Yeah. They're supposed to do a new one every year.
Right. So we don't have 2022 yet, but I hear from the chairman that these things don't change much from year to year, but I will have Heather circulate the annual report again.
That's fine. And we can address it and hopefully just take some time with it next week.
All right. The planning board also divided up into subcommittees, and the subcommittee I'm assigned to will be addressing implementation of the master plan. Green Ridgewood also met. We had a field trip to the Ridgewood Water headquarters and then to the Carr facility where there are these enormous PFAS treatment tanks. You can see it if you drive. If you're going into the recycling center, you can't miss them. You won't be able to drive to them, but that gives you an idea of what Ridgewood Water is doing to make our water compliant with the maximum contaminant limits for PFAS. And we also went to another well site in Glen Rock, very educational. And if you have a chance to do a tour like that, it will really give you insight into what Ridgewood Water is doing for us. We are also gearing up for Earth Day, the Daffodil Festival, and Earth Day Fair, and we are looking for vendors, exhibitors for the day in April, which will be April 23rd. We're also looking for sponsors. And I think I saw you have the flyer. So we'll probably be putting the flyer on our website.
It's a draft.
Yeah. Let's see. We also, the subcommittee on EAGER, Encouraging Alternative Green Energy for Ridgewood, met with our new consultant, Gable Associates, to talk about an energy aggregating program for our electricity to get more renewably sourced electricity at hopefully a lower price. Well, we knew the market's terrible right now, but it was a good first meeting, and we will be meeting again in March because they think they will have more information to gauge the market at that point. We are also planning a town hall meeting, a public forum. We haven't decided what we're calling it yet, but to address the deer overpopulation in Ridgewood and Lyme disease. And that will be on March 31st, and I think we're going to have a really interesting panel. The Green Team also met on January 16th, and we are trying to get more credits. People are really working hard to do that. They've proposed No Mow May. This is probably at least statewide, if not nationwide. It's an effort to preserve the habitat and food for pollinators and other insects. And so we are going to be setting up a registration so that you can get a sign, put it on your lawn so that everybody knows that you're participating in No Mow May. It's not that you're just lazy. And let's see. We went to the EMS installation dinner, Emergency Medical Services, and boy, they can really go all out. That was a terrific event.
Party.
Yeah. So we're thankful they invited us. The Martin Luther King Day weekend was terrific, very inspiring speakers and singers. It was hard to sit still, and we didn't. The Central Business District Committee, Central Business District Advisory Committee met, and we discussed the Main Street program. This is a national program that comes down through the state to the municipalities to help downtowns thrive. There is training and all kinds of other types of support, but boy, the application process is kind of daunting. So we were weighing whether it's worth it. I also wanted to mention, if you see a lamppost that is not lit at night in the Central Business District, please let our engineering department know, and they will hound PSE&G to get it done, to get it fixed. You can contact Yendi Anderson or Chris Rudeshauser in the engineering department.
We do need a poll number for those lights.
That's right.
So make sure you get the poll number.
Yep. And I had one that didn't have a poll number, so I tied a string around it. I hope you found it. Let's see. Central Business District Advisory Committee is also discussing what priorities they think should be followed going forward in terms of implementing the master plan downtown, and will be the committee will submit its memo to the council. The Open Space Committee also met. It was our reorganization meeting, and I think Fred Jubitz has already covered that. Our officers were elected, and I believe that's all I have.
Thank you very much, Pam. I met with the Stigma-Free Committee last week, and they have several great programs that I want to let our residents know about. The first is something called Mom Matters 2. It is on Wednesday, February 15th from 2 to 3 p.m. virtually, And what they say is that being a mom is the most rewarding job there is, but it can be all-encompassing. This is a talk about how you can take care of you to better take care of your family. Individuals can register online or contact Danielle Fabrizio at 201-291-6264 for more information. Another great program is Kids and Social Media, What Parents Should Know and What They Can Do. It is on Thursday, March 16th, 7 to 8 p.m., also virtually. And it is a discussion about the challenges facing middle schoolers and teens in this digital age, focusing on what parents should know about how social media may be affecting their kids and what they can do. Individuals can register online or also contact Danielle Fabrizio at the same number. I'll repeat it, 201-291-6264. If you register online, it is at www.valleyhealth.com. And finally, there is a program for homebound residents to get flu and COVID vaccine boosters. And you can reach out to Corinne Scarpa at the Newbridge Health Center, and her number is 201-961-9256. And finally, last week there was a meeting that our former mayor, Ramon Hache, put together. He is now a Bergen County Commissioner, and we are grateful for his time and his effort. He gathered all of the key players who are involved and can help with the issue of flooding on Vets and Stevens Field, which is poignant that we're discussing Shedler this evening. There were representatives from the Board of Ed, the DEP, the county, the village, the state. In particular, I'd like to just note that our Assemblyman, Krista Phillips, Dr. Fitz, our interim superintendent, Jeff Nias, the principal of the high school, and Siobhan and I and many others were there. And what was pointed out to us was that the stadium field and Stevens have flooded 5 times in the last 2 years. It is not an intermittent problem. One small aspect of this is that the bridge that connects Stadium Field and Stevens is a very, very low bridge. It only has a clearance to the water of maybe 3 feet or so. And what happens is some piece of debris will often get stuck and caught in that, and it begins a damming process. And once that bridge is dammed, the water immediately begins to overflow. Fortunately, the DEP officials told us that this one is a very easy fix, that all they need to do is apply, and they will be granted a permit so that they can raise that bridge and rebuild another bridge. So it is a small step in a big process. I know that county officials, DEP officials, Krista Phillips, Chris Rudishauser, who was in attendance, will be assisting Scott Beisig, if I didn't pronounce that correctly, who's a great guy, the business administrator for the Board of Ed, in getting that application put together. And while they were there, they were also looking at the Ridgewood Avenue Bridge, which is owned by the county. The first bridge is owned by the Board of Ed, and that is something that the county is going to be looking at in the next year or two because it is scheduled for replacement. And the idea is that that is a curved bottom bridge. And what happens is the curved bottoms at the edges, we have a similar problem. Water can't get through. It is going to be a more difficult issue because as you repair these issues, it affects people downstream. But they're going to be checking in on that and seeing what they can do to improve that. And that's all I have this evening. And now we will go to the reason that everyone is here this evening, which is the Shedler property update.
Right. So we had done this in the beginning of December. We have a new council now, obviously. So I'll ask Chris Rudishauser to come up and give us a presentation on the update and, explain the information about SHPO and how they have to approve everything before we can move forward, just so everyone is aware.
So, Chris, just before you begin, because there's a lot of people who spoke about this, I wanted to make sure The last time this plan was publicly discussed was in 2017, and at that point, the community was not aware, I wasn't aware, and the community wasn't, that all 7 acres have been declared historic. And what that means is there's a declaration that the land is now historic. With that, that means that this plan is a discussion. This is a work session. We don't vote. We discuss elements of it. It'll come back, and there'll be work product regarding the discussion. We will approve it, and then when and if we approve a plan, it goes to SHPO, which stands for State Historic Preservation Office. So the change from the last time this was discussed, and I think it's just an important technicality, is that our engineering department's very proficient. That's internally. We'll work with them. We'll review it. But the oversight and the final say is with the state. So I want to make sure that people understand that. I also left a copy of this larger one because, if you have bad eyes like me, you're going to need the larger version. And the most easy to apply version for like a general person to read is page 4. So if you guys want to look at that, if you want to spread it out on the table, feel free. And you should be seeing some of it up on the screens.
Good evening, Mayor, members of the council. To Ms. Winograd's point, she is correct. The entire site, every little blade of grass, every little rock, stone on the site is governed by the oversight of the State Historic Preservation Office. What that means is any development proposals the village wishes to entertain or consider has to get their review. What we've been working with SHPO over the last year and a half is to develop a site plan that they can approve administratively and does not require a Historic Sites Council hearing and approval process, which is similar to seeking a variance at either the Zoning Board of Adjustment or the Planning Board. The plans you folks have before you are our latest proposal of what we can do at the site. I had presented this briefly with the last council, and then I was requested to continue the discussion with you folks since this council now has a few new members, and there has been a change of faces on it also. One of the key things that I've found out from SHPO, and might disappoint some residents, is that SHPO does not recommend artificial turf. If we wish to put a turf field in there, we will probably have to go to the Historic Sites Council for a hearing, present, as I said, similar to what you do to a planning board or a zoning board. That can delay the process. The Historic Sites Council doesn't meet very often. I don't know how much additional time it would give to the project or add to the project if the village chooses to go that route. Do you wish for me to basically start over where I was with last time?
And I really appreciate that, Chris. We have new members of the council. I know that you did this entire presentation in December, but for the benefit of the new members of the council and for those who are now here, because this was pretty well publicized, it would be great if you could begin at the beginning. Again, my apologies, but I really appreciate it.
Okay. Basically, as you said, drawing 4 of 9 shows what we propose. We have a soccer field that's 225 feet by 150 feet. We have some on-site parking. We have a proposed bathroom area with a overhang and a porch that is critical for lightning protection for the players utilizing the field. We have a playground. It will be handicap accessible. Will be fenced in. We have a walking path that goes around the entire property. I think it comes out to almost over 2,000 feet. We also have some very limited parking near the historic home that is currently in Phase 2 of its restoration. That's the restoration of its interior. Phase 1 was the reconstruction of the roof and restoration of the siding and some windows. We have an entrance across from Kingsbridge. The entrance we propose is a divided entrance with an island in the middle. This is a feature that we employed when we designed and constructed the park at Habernickel on Hillcrest Road. It has turned out very nice, we feel, and provides a good separation. As you come in, if you look to your left, there is like a light tan colored area. That area is just going to be natural at this time. Nothing is proposed for that area. Then as you go to your right, we have like a lime green color, light green color. This is going to be a natural meadow. It's not going to be lawn that is trimmed on a regular basis. We also show what you may see with a lot of dimples are rain gardens. Those are for stormwater management. And we also have a 7-space parking lot that is just on the west side of the Shedler house. That's parking area will be 5 conventional spaces and 2 spaces for disabled individuals. That parking lot connects to the ADA ramp that we've already previously constructed under a Bergen County Community Block Development Grant. Following the roadway in, we come to a parking area. We have parking for approximately 24 cars. We will propose to put in 2 EV spaces with chargers. Right now, we are reviewing what level chargers to utilize. If possible, we'll probably go towards the higher ones, the level 2s, maybe even a level 3 charger. Those type of chargers will have a meter on to charge the person using them for the electricity that get charged into their vehicle. We have found that, from our experience, the level 1 chargers, like the village has in the Hudson Garage, they're slow and they don't charge much. I mean, 2s and 3s, they get the more juice out. We also have, let's see, I mentioned the bathroom. With the bathroom is a storage shed for equipment for the Parks Department to maintain the fields. Playground I already mentioned. Oh, parking on the street. We will have, let me see how many spaces. We propose 18 parallel spaces along West Saddle River Road. What you'll see, there are some islands in between the spaces. Those are where there are some large utility poles with a significant amount of overhead wiring. And we also include the space block, the 8-foot space that we have elsewhere in the village that is kind of like an assist for people to parallel park.
Chris, how many spots in total?
Pardon?
How many parking spots in total?
We have 24 at the main lot,
Right.
plus 7, plus 18.
Okay. Thank you.
And how many handicap spots?
Excuse me?
Are any handicap?
We have 2 handicap by the building.
Okay.
And then in the other parking lot, up where the 24 spaces are, we show an additional 2 handicap spaces, or spaces for disabled individuals. Okay. No ADA spaces alongside the street. Usually the problem there is the width that you would need to make it a van accessible space. Between the house and the playing field, we'll propose a screening buffer. Our police department, when they did their security review of what we propose, had suggested the screening be kept at no more than 4 to 5 feet high, so that if an officer is responding to this site coming off Route 17, he can have the maximum view of what's on the property as he approaches the property and can get to whatever the incident is that they're being dispatched to as quick as possible. For the parking area just west of the home, we're going to probably use a permeable paving block. We're going to have to coordinate with SHPO on the coloration. Coloration is very critical to the State Historic Preservation Office. The curbing we propose in the site will have a reduced height. Instead of the normal 6-inch reveal, we're going with a 3-inch reveal. That'll maintain the pavement edge and still give something that we can plow and remove the snow. That curb we propose to tint We have a tint color proposed. We'll review that with SHPO to see if they're satisfied with that or if they would prefer a different color. Some historical perspective, when we constructed the ADA accessible ramp into Graydon Pool, the concrete for the ramp, we had to tint it to SHPO's satisfaction. We had a meeting on site with SHPO. They looked at the existing sand, they looked at our color choices, and we let them select the final one that we added to the concrete when we constructed the ramp. So colors make a big difference to them. At this time, I know it was mentioned by several residents tonight, we are not proposing any fixed field lighting for the playing field. We are proposing an 8-foot wide sidewalk that'll circumvent the property. The reason we like 8 feet is that's the width of one of our pickup snowplow trucks. We have an 8-foot sidewalk up at Hillcrest. We have found that if we plow it as soon as possible after a storm, residents can better use the park and they enjoy it. So if you look at the sidewalk, yes, it's designed to be circumvented by a pickup with a plow on it. The concrete sidewalk will also be tinted. The color we propose is, if you look on the chart on top, we are proposing to SHPO a C27 called Westwood Brown. Again, we hope they agree. Along the sidewalk, there will be a number of park benches, I believe in total maybe about 8 of them. And that's, people can sit down, enjoy the park. Over by the street, we're proposing trees along the street. Trees along the street will be underwire type trees. Those are species of trees usually selected or recommended by PSE&G for planting underneath overhead wires. Obviously, we have a whole series of overhead wires along the street, so it doesn't make sense to plant something like a red oak that's going to grow up and be a problem in the wires. When we discussed the tree planting with SHPO, they recommended there be no trees along the frontage of the house itself. They felt that the trees would reduce the visibility of the home. We concur, so they were taken off one of our earlier design drawings that we had submitted to SHPO. The project site will have discrete security cameras connected to the police department for safety and security at the site. They'll be connected to the village's fiber optic network. The proposed work that is shown on these plans will require removal and grubbing of the stumps of most of the trees on the site. The only areas really that can be preserved is the little triangle at the southmost area and the darker brown area that shows the rain garden in there. We are still doing every effort to preserve the sugar maple at the northwest corner of the existing home. Does anybody has any questions? I'd be pleased to try to answer them.
How long?
What?
How long would this take to get done?
That remains as to how fast State Historic Preservation approves our plans. Then we'll bid them out. Construction will probably take 180 to 240 days.
And you think that the plan that you're presenting tonight, as you said before, would not require hearing? We could,
I'm sorry, I can't hear you.
Sorry. So you stated before that the plan you just presented to us, you don't think would require hearing with SHPO. The hope is that they would do it without the hearing. Is that right?
We think the plan that we were presenting tonight should get approved by State Historic without having to go to the Historic Councils.
Okay.
I have a question about runoff, stormwater runoff.
Mhm.
Are there any stormwater grates within this park, or are we relying solely on the rain gardens to absorb the runoff?
There are no stormwater catch basins or grates. All stormwater management will be dealt with rain gardens. That's why there's quite a number of them throughout the site. Our grading will direct surface water runoff to that area. Some of our preliminary test bits in the area showed that we've got a pretty decent draining soil over here.
And for the field, is that high ground? Which way does the water flow off the field?
That field is graded. Let me see which drawing has that. If you go to the next one, drawing 5 of 9, you'll see some of the grading of the field. There's swales along the field's northeast corner, directing flow to the north, where it'll then make a left turn towards the rain garden. I have to correct myself. We do have two minor lawn inlets that'll capture runoff also, and those would be at the field's southwest and southeast corners.
Yep, I see that. On this map, there are some really dark lines, like the ellipse in the middle of the field, or these other things that look, I don't know, kind of like a nose. What are those dark lines?
On drawing 5 of 9, the lighter lines is the existing topography from our field survey. The heavier, darker lines is our proposed grading.
So I have a couple technical questions.
Sure.
So one, in 2017, the entrance to the park was further away. Are we comfortable with the entrance being so close to Route 17?
I'm very comfortable with that. It's a true intersection. We did have a traffic study done by our police department in 2015. It was very interesting. It showed there's generally a rapid deceleration off of Route 17. If the council would like, I can submit that to Heather for distribution to you folks.
I would like to see it.
Yeah, I would too.
My second question is getting into the details of the field. So I understand and I heard you. And does SHPO have a schedule of hearings? And if we decided to go for the full-sided field and turf it up, do we have a timeline?
That I don't know. I'd have to ask them if they have a calendar available of when they would have meetings of the full Historic Sites Council.
I would like to see that. I mean, I think that's, for me personally, just as one vote, I think the fact that this is high, dry land, this would be a missed opportunity to go with the smaller side. I think the baseball plan in 2016 had a full-sided, and the recommendation in 2017 had a full-sided field as well. So those are two public recommendations, and I think that given the persistent flooding and what we've seen over the past 5 years, we should really explore that. And if you want me to write a letter to go with that and we could talk about that, I think we've seen that change since last time.
What I will do is when I have tomorrow or the next day, I'll just email my contact at SHPO with the question you pose.
Okay.
For the schedule.
So can you ask it in two parts? Full-sided, 1.
What's that?
Can you ask it in two parts? Full-sided, 1, turf, 2? So we can.
Well, they've already said they don't recommend turf.
Right. So the problem with turf is that the maintenance, we have as we're looking at the budget, grass, and we have to be honest, grass requires watering. We are experiencing a water shortage, and the utilization on turf is so much greater. And when people were speaking earlier, our existing fields, like to specifically mention Citizens, it is called the Dust Bowl. I had serious concerns when my children were little, and we have to be honest about our water usage and the existing fields. So I don't know how open they are to that. I don't know if that's a deal stopper, but I think we should think about that. I think, we learned at the flood meeting that 20% of New Jersey is in a flood state, and it's increasing given the climate changes. So I would like to definitely explore full-sided as 1, and then 2, explore the turf.
Explore, what was that again?
Full-sided, the larger field.
Okay, so how large a field would you like to look at?
Larger. And then, are you guys?
How big?
Full-sided, 11 v. 11, as my children would say. I don't know what the feet are on that, but I can send it to you. Like Maple.
The site, some of our preliminary work years ago, the site, it suggested that we could put a full-size soccer field on.
Mm-hmm. That's fine.
Some of our work also suggested a 90-foot baseball diamond would fit.
Right.
We can prepare drawings that show that. However, the big however is what you see here in terms of the parking, We will have to change that because that's going to conflict.
Well, so I wanted to talk about that because sometimes people think that big kids bring more traffic, but the reality is that smaller youth sports bring the most amount of kids. So the
I
small
agree. We've seen that too.
Right. So the small-sided kids, smaller kids often, at least when my kids were little, would bring two parents who are rushing from two different places, two sets of grandparents on two sides, an aunt and an uncle, which eats, like by the time they're in high school, and or larger, there's less traffic. So the full-sided would actually be less of a nuisance in terms of traffic and cars, at least from my perspective.
It could have very well may be, because we have seen that also. Ancillary observations are the field here on Vets, because we live with it in parking at Village Hall.
I mean, smaller kids just come with an entourage of cars. So sorry. So the next thing that I also want to talk about is that while people are referencing soccer, because that's the most common dimension, I see it as a field, a multi-purpose field for both football, lacrosse, and soccer. And when you get into lacrosse, lacrosse is a more hazardous sport because I don't know if anybody's ever been hit with a lacrosse ball, but it hurts. And I love the combination of passive, but I am concerned about the proximity of the field for lacrosse use without fencing to contain the lacrosse balls. At the high school, you know what I'm talking about? Because a lacrosse ball into West Saddle River Road could shatter a windshield, and if I were walking and a lacrosse ball hit me, that would really hurt. And if a baby, that can be a game changer if it hit a stroller. So I am concerned about the interior fencing, keeping the balls inside the field.
You're referring to like netting, not
Netting
fencing.
and fencing. Some of them, a combination.
Okay,
At the
'cause we pretty much the park is surrounded by 42-inch high, 3-rail, post and rail fencing with a box mesh on the inside. That's to keep wayward balls, wayward little kids contained.
We're going to need netting more like they have on East Ridgewood Ave behind the goalposts. So when you see that, like the backdrop, it's got to have some type
I mean,
of...
if this is to be considered for lacrosse, we'd have to look at a netting system similar to what is here at the 90-foot field on Vets.
I just think because we're going into the budget, we're going to want to think that, and football and lacrosse have more projectiles. And then the only other question that I really have is that the playground, when I was in my citizen's hat, I felt like not putting the diversion playground at Shedler showed a lack of commitment to the diversion. Would this playground satisfy the diversion that's still outstanding?
We'd have to ask DEP if they would accept it. They have told us for the diversion issue that we took a playground off of South Broad and they want it as close as possible to South Broad. This location is pretty much as far away as you can get and still stay in the village. It's a question to ask the diversions.
The other thing is there's a time frame. So once it's heard at the state division, I think it's within 6 months it has to be placed. Because of this fact that we're held up by SHPO approving the plans, we don't know if we could place the playground that quickly. And if we place it before it goes to the state, then it doesn't count towards the diversion. That's the issue. And that's why we chose to put it at Kings Pond. But, the diversion has been held up too. So we'll see if that's moving forward. We are at the final application for that, for the diversion. So hopefully that's moving forward, but I don't know. So it's really a matter of timing more than not wanting to place it at Shedler.
So I just want to say a couple things to that. So the goal of Green Acres and the diversion, we found out about the diversion 15 years after Open Space had acquired both Habernickel and Shedler. So, that's just a timing issue, but I think the state needs to be reasonable that this is 7 and Habernickel's 10, and that was a good faith purchase. 2, I feel that a huge part of going back in the discussion was to integrate this park would help the east side of Ridgewood integrate into the community. And, the younger people who are users of the field, when you're a young mother and you have an 8 a.m. practice and your husband's, on trial, and you bring your other kids, it is such a amenity-rich family experience to have a walking path and a playground where all the other kids can go. And it makes the park, we talk about the combination of passive and active, and I think without the playground, it really becomes lesser of a park. I think it's more family-oriented this way. You've got sort of a generational approach to it. And The other reality is that the proposal for Kings Pond with the timing was $120,000. This is a lot of money, and I think there hasn't been a clamoring for a park at Kings Pond. So I would like to really, if we could discuss the diversion in closed session and see if we can explore the timing. The state, I mean, I really want to work with them, and I think Ridgewood's doing a good thing here, and we're trying to check a lot of boxes. It makes the most sense to me to make this larger park filled with more family-oriented things, such as the playground.
There is a playground at Shedler. So
Yeah, but it's not, in the budget, it's not recommended. On the paperwork of the budget, it was possible funding later on one of the lines. It wasn't part of the phase on this batch. So we also have the issues.
But there was a plan to put a playground there.
Right, but not for the original proposal now. It was a phase, the playground on this pass was budgeted for, not for this plan in the budget that we were sent. And we really don't need two playgrounds if we're, I mean, Kings Pond is next to water, and I understand the need to clear the diversion, but it would, to me, show a sign of commitment if we tried to bundle it all together. I mean, it is still $120,000 to put a playground for small children next to water.
Are you good, Siobhan?
I'm good.
Great.
I don't
Pam,
think I
know
can
you
have
had
much
some,
more.
Pam, I know you had some other questions. Are you ready, or should we
Yeah.
skip and come back?
The sugar maple tree by the house that's supported, how old is it? How much more life does it have in it?
I'll give you folks the same speech I gave at the last council meeting. From my experience as an arborist, and I worked as a consultant, I worked as an arborist from 79 to 85. I did not pass the certified tree expert as the village arborist did. I instead became an engineer, so here I sit. That tree I would characterize in human terms as a 95-year-old with maybe stage 3, maybe stage 4 cancer. Not the longest lifespan possible. The tree could live another 5-10 years, or it could go down tomorrow. The tree has had extensive cabling inside. Several of those cables have snapped. The cables are old. They're at least 30 years old. It does have a few cavities. The village did make an effort to resuscitate the tree. We had it pruned, and we had it deep root fed. It did get a little recovery from that. However, winds in the last couple of years have torn off branches. The big thing that concerns me about that tree is it's at the house's northwest corner. Prevailing winds in this area are generally from the northwest. So.
Okay. Also, I see mention, I think it is on the second map, page 2, of a silt fence. What is a silt fence, and why do we need it?
Silt fence is required under a soil erosion sediment control permit that we are obligated to pull for the project. It is a fencing, usually like a black plastic fencing. It's installed with the flap tucked on the ground so that any of the excavated areas before the ground is stabilized, if there's sufficient rain to cause a transport of fines and materials, silt fence will stop it. It won't entirely eliminate the transport, but it'll stop the sediment flow as much as possible. It's an obligation that, as I said, the Bergen County Soil Conservation District will require us to install. It is removed once the project is finished and the open graded areas, the graded land areas have been seeded.
So it gets removed.
Yes, at the end when the project work is completed.
Okay. You know that undisturbed area, the brown triangle over by the entrance?
At the south of the entrance.
Yeah. Could that be used for community gardens? I hear that our existing community gardens have been repeatedly flooded, and especially during harvest time, and so it's very difficult to continue using those boxes. Could we do that there?
I don't see why not, subject to SHPO. Let me add that caveat. I'll add it to my list for SHPO.
And then I have another couple questions about turf. what are the environmental effects of disposing of turf? We had to do that at Maple Field, buy a whole new set of turf. Where does that get disposed? How much did we have to pay for it to be disposed of? And is it floating in our oceans now?
As far as I
concerned
recall,
about the environment.
when the turf was replaced, it was disposed of as solid waste. I don't know exactly if that solid waste was landfilled or incinerated.
Also, the EPA was looking, last time I researched this, which was 5 years ago, the EPA was looking at a new rule that would affect turf. Does the EPA have any rules or regulations that would affect installation of turf here?
EPA or DEP?
EPA.
Not to my knowledge. This is a site that, unlike most fields in the village, is outside the purview of DEP, New Jersey DEP, Department of Environmental Protection, and US EPA. There's no wetlands, there's no bodies of water in the vicinity.
But you couldn't put anything down that was not compliant, so.
Mr. Rogers is correct. We just can't, just because it's not in a jurisdictional area of theirs, we just cannot put anything down that would cause a contaminant issue in their eyes.
Okay. On map 7, there's a hot box, something labeled a hot box. I couldn't tell whether that was for gas or electric. What is it?
Yeah, that's for the irrigation system. Before we drain it, if we get a cold day, we don't want anything to freeze and break.
I'm sorry, didn't hear you.
If before the system is drained for the winter, say we get a very cold night in October, that's to make sure that the valves and the systems don't freeze and break.
Okay. With regard to the landscaping in map 8, has the director of the Parks Department looked that over?
Yes, we've reviewed this with the Parks Department, but they have much less say in the landscaping than SHPO does. The SHPO has told us stick to native plants. Matter of fact, when we did the plantings on the berm, the initial planting was approved by SHPO. That species was not available due to a disease issue. An alternate species was proposed, the green giants. We had to send that information to SHPO, and after a period of time, they did approve that switch. So they have a say on plantings.
Okay, let's see. Oh, there's a notation on map 7, 2-inch PVC for future use. What's that for? I think it was map 7.
That's usually a spare conduit. It's labeled proposed, there's 2-inch PVC, Schedule 80, and there's a bracket spare. That's in case we need to run any additional fiber optic or communication wires or anything. We would prefer to have the conduit already in the ground than have to dig up the whole site again. While we're digging it up, we have found it's a cost-effective way for future planning to put an extra conduit in.
Oh, I appreciate that. That's really
We've learned.
forward thinking. Great. Is the equipment in the playground for ADA or special needs kids?
It will be.
Okay.
Just like the ones we put up in the Tabernacle.
Okay. I couldn't tell from the pictures.
Now, that's just a pictorial representation. The actual playground will have ADA components. Here, this is a flat site. We don't have the advantage like we have in Tabernacle, where we had the slope to assist in rolling in through one area and coming down through the playground and exiting out at a lower level. But this is flat.
That's all I have. Thank you.
Okay. Thanks, Pam. Lorraine?
Thank you, Paul. Chris, first question. When the ad hoc committee came up with their recommendation after a year or two, whatever, of fighting. What size field did they recommend?
I believe they recommended what we show on this drawing.
Okay, that's what I thought.
Yeah.
So the ad hoc committee had members of the residents in the area, the sports teams. I know there were 2 council members on it. Was there somebody from engineering on the ad hoc committee?
I do not believe anybody from our division was present at their meetings.
Okay. But this was a culmination and a mediation of sorts. I remember Mike Seaton saying, you know, in the beginning, there was screaming, fighting. You couldn't even look at each other, you know. This was a very, very hard-fought plan to get an agreement by all parties. So in my opinion, this is the field size that should stay, because this was a community effort. From what I understand, the ad hoc committee had members from everywhere. That's the first thing I want to say. The second thing is, I really feel when this whole thing started, I don't remember so many trees to be taken down. I remember that it was going to be lots of wooded area and passive area. Like, there seems to be practically no trees that are going to exist that were there before.
We do have an area, the brown area up at the north. Can't really have a tree in a soccer field. Doesn't work out too well.
Well, I mean, on the path, I pictured something like the duck pond walking path, where it's shaded. It's a nice place to walk because there's lots of shade. Here, you're going to be in the blazing sun through most of this path.
I disagree. If you look on drawing 4 of 9, we have at least 24 shade trees of various species proposed alongside the parking lot, then moving up alongside the walking path on the east side of the walking path. That'll get most of the morning sun.
The trees that you have proposed, it says, so there's 24 2-inch trees?
2-inch
shade
DBH.
trees? What?
2-inch DBH.
Right. So how tall are those?
Those are generally 6 to 7 footers.
Right.
We're
So
more
it's-
interested in the stem thickness at breast height being 2 inches thick.
So how
They'll
many
generally be
years
bald and
would you
burlap.
say that would take in order to really provide shade on the path?
It could be a couple of years, depending how they take to the ground. We are proposing irrigation.
Okay. I mean, I don't think trees grow that
I mean,
fast for shade.
again,
trees.
this can be a decision of the councils. You want bigger trees, budget more money.
Mhm. I would prefer bigger trees. So, and I am definitely against the area to the left of the driveway. Right now, that's proposed as being
Nothing.
undisturbed. Is
Yes,
the word.
correct.
So you have 2 areas of undisturbed. When you first pull in on the left, the small area, and then the area all the way to the right of the field is an undisturbed area.
Yeah, roughly the northern property line boundary.
So how many trees would you say is in that northern area that will be undisturbed? Any estimate?
That's a question that needs qualifications first. What size diameter do you consider a tree to count? I know there's a lot of saplings, there's a lot of smaller trees. We did have a couple storms come through the property that took down a lot of trees. We cleaned those up, I think in 16 or 17. Off the top of my head, I can't say.
Okay. I mean, where I would like to see more trees than is here. That's my opinion. Then I have a question about the bathrooms. So there's 2 bathrooms, and is there a storage area in between?
Yeah, it's a chase or storage area.
Okay, and then what is that other rectangular next to it say?
Then in front of the bathrooms or between the bathrooms and the field is also a storage shed. There's a
Okay.
chase for like plumbing supplies to deal with the bathrooms,
Okay.
mop bucket, and the other one is a shed, as I mentioned earlier, for Parks and Rec.
Okay, and then beyond the shed, closer to the field, what are those like 4 rectangular areas?
That is the overhang area I mentioned, where we have a covered patio for lightning protection. If we have a lightning storm on the field, we have no means of providing a safe refuge for the kids on the field. The village does have lightning warning systems, on our recreation fields. The coaches are very well trained that when it goes off, play ceases, they have to get their players into a safe locale.
Okay.
And that's
So
the only
that
safe
area-
locale here, because the house may not be available, may not be open for them at the time.
Right. So that area, it can't be used for anything else. That is strictly for a safe haven in case of lightning strike?
It's certainly an area that if a parent wishes to set up a chair to watch their kid on a playground or on the field with like a sun cover over them,
Mhm.
I see no reason why not.
Okay. No, that's good. I just want to make sure it's not going to be changed. It should always be available in case we have storms.
Yes,
for
we're
protection.
very adamant that we need to provide some kind of lightning protection for our athletes.
Okay. What else? The walking path. I know it's going to be, tinted concrete. Is there any advantage or any discussion about using the material that you used on Hope Street to replace the sidewalk? I forgot what that was called, but it was more like
The
a...
rubberized sidewalk?
Yes.
I would not recommend it, because the second we hit that with a snowplow on our pickup truck, it's going to peel up and be a mess.
Okay.
I mean, that's one of the reasons we're doing a pilot program with that material. We want to see how it performs in winter with snow shoveling. Thank goodness this year the winter has not shown up yet. Very happy about it. I'll keep it that way if I can.
Okay. So on 4 of 9 in that undisturbed wooded area to the right of the soccer field, it says undisturbed. But I think there was another page where it said clear. Where is it? Maybe. Yeah, so on page 3 of 9, it says site clearing. Is that just, is the arrow pointed at just that 8-foot walkway that's going to be cleared?
Yes.
Okay.
And as you saw on drawing 4, we do have a small culvert pipe at the southern area. That's to take the grading surface overland flow, bring it underneath the walking path, and bring it to the rain garden area.
Okay. All right. And I also want to say I'm completely against having permanent lights. This is a historic site. We don't want to desecrate it. And I think that, the plan that we have in front of us, I think would go through. I know you guys have been talking with SHPO all along, and if you were going to put something in, they would say no, you'd go back to the drawing board. I mean, you've kind of had conversations with them, and it's not 100% guaranteed, but they kind of know what you're going to present, and they have not, pushed back. Is that correct?
I think we've had between 4 and 6 design documents that we submitted to them. Basically, as they say, run up the flagpole and see what they say, propose ideas, propose suggestions, and seeking their feedback. We felt that was very important, because with our goal of producing a plan that they can approve administratively without going to the Historic Sites Council.
Right. Okay.
That was our goal and our direction that we took this project.
All right. And I think we also have to consider, you know, the promises that were made to the neighborhood. This is really, it is the whole, you know, it is all of Ridgewood. It's their park, but that part of town doesn't have a playground or a park. So this is something that they are going to use every day. I want to protect them. I want to protect the neighborhood from clear-cutting the property. I want to protect them from the noise from Route 17. You know, we don't have enough field space in Ridgewood, no doubt about it.
As for noise, bear in mind that along the entire frontage of Route 17, we constructed a considerably high berm, and last year a contractor installed trees. They're irrigated. We hope for the best for their survival. They are green giants. If they take off, they'll give another 20 feet of screening on top of the berm.
Right.
So that will really separate Route 17 from the Shedler site.
I get it, but more trees are better, in my opinion. And turf, I'm really against turf. I think it's dangerous. You know, I'm sorry for using Linda McNamara's name, but if she were here, you know, she's turning over in her grave. She would be devastated that the word turf was even mentioned for the Shedler site. So I'm just so against turf in so many ways. And I guess that's it for now. Oh, I just wanted to also say we have not waited 12 years for this. When the village bought this property in 2009, it was with the intention of not, you know, there was no money. They said, we're buying it just to have it. We have no intentions. It wasn't until years later that we started talking about doing something about it. And the ad hoc committee didn't come up.
Excuse me. Thank you.
The ad hoc committee didn't come up with the plan until, I'm going to say, 2017. Is that correct, Siobhan?
Yeah, I have a couple of things to add about the ad hoc committee. So one, in terms of the plan, the ad hoc committee's recommendation in 2017 was for Cool Play Turf. It was proposed as Cool Play Turf with Ho-Hocus, which has environmental standards on turf, uses as reference. It's on page 10 of the proposal, which is listed on the website. And again, the difference, I agree, there was in full disclosure, my husband Mike served on the Parks and Recreation Board at that time, and he was on the ad hoc. And I think the single biggest difference is the persistent flooding. In the 5 years since this proposal, I mean, think about that. Jeff Nias, during his tenure at the high school that oversees thousands of kids, has seen 500-year floods in less than 2 years. So I struggled with this. I thought the ad hoc committee did a great job. Not just because I married one of them, but I do think that we can't cherry pick what we want to honor. It was turf in 2017, and the reason why I'm recommending we explore a full-sided turf is because of global warming and persistent flooding and the impact it's having on our community. So I thought long and hard about that. Heather, there is a study out of Ho-Hocus that we could circulate regarding the environmental impact of turf. It was part of this proposal. And before we get into splitting hairs of why, there is no doubt when we bought this land for millions of dollars from our open space trust, whatever intentions were, time doesn't lie, the calendar doesn't lie. It's been too long, and in addition to the purchase price, whatever our reasons were for waiting, prior to the ad hoc, there was a baseball. The baseball field cannot be ignored, that there was actual commitment to baseball. There was $100,000 cash in hand, and another council unraveled that. But that's all history, and where we are now is there's a reality that we purchased it, we removed it from the tax roll, so in addition to the purchase price, the community has paid for this in a lot of ways. This was tax revenue generating. That property used to generate taxes, and we've removed it. And there's just, no matter what the intentions are, the reality is it's taken a long time.
Okay. I can ask Chris, if we do with a full-size soccer field, do you think that will slow the process down? I know you said turf will likely slow us down, but will a full-size field slow us down?
In the email I will send to SHPO, I'm going to pose a couple questions. That'll be one of them.
Okay.
How they would regard going from the size field we had discussed to a full-size soccer field. I'd have to double-check the dimensions. Also, if the village council wishes for a 90-foot field, I'll ask how SHPO would regard that. Whether those are trigger items in their eyes that would cause us to go to the Historic Sites Council.
Yeah, I would like to know if it's slow up. I mean, my thing is this, is, you know, it occurred to me as this was being presented that when we bought this property, I did not have any children. And it sounds like best case scenario, I'm going to have at least one kid in high school next year before we even get a shovel in the ground. At the rate we're going, maybe my grandkids will get to play soccer there. We can't let the perfect be the enemy of the good. I'm sorry, the good be the enemy of the perfect. Well, the other way around. Anyway.
You got it right the first time.
I got it right the first time. Right. At some point, we just got to build something that makes sense. Candidly, you know, on turf, I think I might prefer turf. I really don't know. But if it adds another year or two into the process, let's put grass down. In terms of the trees, you know, listen, we can go back and forth on the aesthetics, and, you know, people are going to have different opinions. I like the plan. We're never going to get everyone to agree on it, but what I do feel very strongly about is we just need to build the thing already. We've been talking about this for 13 years already. Let's just build it already. It's a great plan. I do support the larger field, unless it's going to build in a tremendous amount of time to get it done. But what I don't want to do is keep going back and forth and discuss this thing for the next 2 or 3 years, and another generation of kids don't get to enjoy this space.
Anyone?
I need to say this out loud. I'm a little concerned about the Green Giants. Bartlett Tree came to my house and told me that so many people are planting Green Giants that they anticipate in 5 years a blight will hit them all. And so I'm not objecting to this plan. I'm just voicing that worry.
Could I say one thing?
That's a good point. If we over-concentrate on a single species, that's a greater concern. I'll talk to our arborist and see if there's anything else he would suggest to avoid only a single species, to diversify the species.
And with regard to irrigation, I don't quite have a feel for where it is on this map. I think you told us that it's going to be along the berm at the top and at the bottom. What about all the shade trees on the other side of the parking lot and around to the north, and the Green Giants on the northern border?
That's a two-part. My answer has to be a two-parter. The current plantings that we did with the Green Giants on the berm and at the base of the berm, they were planted with irrigation. Their irrigation is constructed for them. That's done. As for irrigation for, let me see if we have a drawing for that. We have to see what we're going to do. We are going to run a water line in, and we have to see what we're going to do on irrigating the field.
Because those trees, especially the shade trees, will need watering at least once a week for the first 2 years.
Oh, yeah. No argument on that. We want them to survive. We want them to thrive.
Chris, can you just, when you're talking to the arborist, can you mention Leland cypress and see what he thinks about those? I know they're very fast-growing. I do well with them where I have them. I don't know if there's an issue.
Again, I don't know either. I would defer to Declan. I'll have that conversation with him.
I had one question.
Sure.
It's more so I agree with Evan, we need to do this, but so many times when you end up at something, this is a $7 million plan and we need to make sure we get it right, and it's a unique opportunity. I don't want to do anything that holds us back, but the one question that I can't get around is, if SHPO's constraining us, have we explored clawing the land back from SHPO? Because in all my question asking, no one's ever told me what makes the land historic. I understand about the house, but there were 3 tax parcels there in the base of this triangle, which is the majority of the development. No one can answer who asked for it to be historic, how did it become historic. what actually happened there that makes it historic. And so for a legal question, I mean, why are we allowing a state constraint on something that nobody even knows the story? It's not in our third grade curriculum as historic. So, I mean, I think we have the opportunity to get this right, but if SHPO and the oversight is holding us back from what the community demonstrated a need from, why aren't we questioning what makes it historic? And I'm not being facetious. It's a serious question. The village hasn't provided it to the school. It's not on the walking tour. Nobody can tell me what makes the land historic. I understand about the house and the structure, but at the time of purchase, it wasn't that. At the time of the last plan, it wasn't. So can we explore that, Matt? I mean...
Yeah, I mean, a couple things. Certainly the issue of how it became, the property itself became historic is a question that you can have to search the answer. And certainly the first place I would start would be with SHPO, just to put that.
I can't answer those questions. They're all very valid. We had no part in how this ended up being SHPO, not just for the house, but for the entire property. We found out about it. I found out about it very much as a surprise.
Me too.
Yeah. It may be.
It was in a closed session at council.
Okay. It may be that it was done, SHPO has the authority to do something like that on their own. I don't know whether there's any state involvement when that comes to play, but I think the way to find out should be researched and should be determined how that came about. So I think that's one of those things. Secondly, I wanted to say, just from a historic perspective, when the property was purchased, it was for active and passive. It was for both. I don't think there was any doubt about making it active as well as providing some passive, and that was what the group got together with in the beginning. The ad hoc was to try and mesh those two together and make it a workable facility and property. And then you were asking before for the dimensions. I think the people in the sports groups can correct me. A full-size lacrosse field and a full-size soccer field are pretty much the same size, and they're about 60 yards by 180 yards, or something in that vicinity. But I can be corrected. We'll get that dimension for you.
So we have the dimension of what a full-size soccer field would be in our office. I just don't have those dimensions committed to memory.
Well, then you don't need my help.
I think that was Matt Rogers' chance to tell you he played lacrosse.
On a 180-yard lacrosse field.
And I played soccer, and I played baseball.
I have some questions and some discussion here. First, I want to thank everyone for being here tonight. Seeing the community involvement is just the greatest thing ever, and we all don't agree on everything, but it's really nice to have everyone here. I'm going to ask Heather to see if we can put this back on, if we have room on the February 22nd public work session. So we will be bringing this back in 2 weeks, which is our next work session. So if you would like to follow the conversation, please attend. For those of you who had questions, the format of our meetings, excuse me, is that we have public comment at the beginning and at the end, and that is the way it works in our system of government. So you could stick around later and pose your questions then, or if you want to get home before midnight, you can submit any questions in writing to Heather, and we will pose them to Chris at the next meeting. So we want to get everyone's involvement, and we don't want to shut anybody out of this conversation. So my first question, I think it might have been asked, is there any problem with fitting a full-sized field on this property?
Full-size soccer field or 90-foot baseball diamond?
No, let's go with the easy one. A full-size soccer, lacrosse, football field.
We believe it can fit. We believe it can fit. The parking along the base of the berm, that will have to be changed. It's going to poke into that.
Got it. So you'd have to make some adjustments, but you think you can get it in?
Yes.
I'm going to ask, if it's agreeable to the council, that you come back in 2 weeks with drawings, if you could submit them to us beforehand.
It's 4 weeks, just so you know.
It's 4 weeks?
Well, because next week's the 1st, the 8th, the 15th, the 22nd.
I lost track. Thank you so much. What is the earliest work session we could get this on?
The 1st, but that's next week, so we probably won't be able, I don't know if we'll have enough time.
The
Mike,
first?
do you have enough time?
That's
Can
going to
it-
take
can-
that's going to take overtime. Yovan's going to be having to work overtime on the CAD.
If you can.
Drawing.
If not, we'll get it on the next meeting.
That also is the agenda locked, Heather?
We could put it on if it can get done, but again, I don't know if it can get done.
Perhaps, instead of fully detailed drawings, a drawing that would illustrate for us how a full-sized field would fit on the existing drawing, an overlay of sorts.
We can try something for next week.
That would be terrific, so.
The council packets go out when? We'll try to get it into the Friday packet.
Thank you so much. We appreciate that. My next question, and here's where I know it gets harder. Baseball. Seems to me that we might be trying, as much as we want to explore this, is that shoehorning in a baseball field where it might not otherwise fit?
Before I answer that question, I'd like to work with our designer, Jovan, our CAD operator, and put the dimensions on the drawing and then present it to you folks. I would like you folks to see it, at which time I could explain any of the limitations and concerns that may occur.
That would be terrific. I think it's a good way to go. My next question. You mentioned the Historic Sites Council. Tell me about that.
That's, I guess, for SHPO, that's similar to the planning board, where you seek a variance for your project because you're outside of what they can approve administratively. I got about a half a dozen items in the conversations with you folks tonight that I will ask SHPO to get clarification on. I'd like to present that clarification to the council because that'll help in the decision-making, because obviously an administrative approval would be quicker than if we have to wait for a Historic Sites Council meeting. Again, also asking for the schedule of when those meetings are proposed to be.
Right, and I gather that from your conversations with SHPO about some of these changes, if the council decided to go in a different direction, that if they did not view it favorably, then we would apply directly to the Historic Sites Council? Is that
I will
correct?
have to ask them what the exact procedures is. Do I apply it to SHPO? Do they say no and then send me off to Historic Sites? Similar to our land use process, you get a zoning review from the zoning officer. The zoning officer determines what you propose, creates a variance condition. Then, depending on what the project is, you either go to the zoning board or to the planning board.
Okay.
We were told, though, that it does delay the process, obviously, because you have to wait for the meeting, and it is more difficult to get them to say yes.
I understand.
Okay.
I understand. I think it was the honey maple tree.
Which one?
Sugar maple tree.
The sugar maple
that
at
you
the northwest
described
corner?
as a 95-year-old human with stage 4
I didn't-
cancer.
Yes, it's gender neutral.
Yes, it is. With stage 4 cancer.
Yes.
If we were to, because it is truly on its last legs, if we were to remove that, what would you do with that space, since we are building this now, and this, according to what you've just said, if we're fortunate, has another 5 or 10 years left? I've seen it, and I'm not a tree expert, but it's not doing good.
Well, that's why I categorize it as I
Yep.
saw it. What would we do with that space? Nothing really, because if you look on drawing 4, we show the faint outline of the base of the tree and then roughly the drip line. The drip line would cover part of the proposed parking lot, sidewalks at the back of the house. They would extend a little bit over what we have right now shown as the screening trees, green giants, which we'll look to see if there's something else so we don't have too many of the same. Its removal wouldn't affect anything really. I don't foresee it.
Would it create additional space for a larger field if we went that way?
No.
Good. Thank you. My concern with the small-sided field stems from my meeting last week with DEP officials, Board of Ed officials, and everyone involved in that meeting. If two of our full-size fields have flooded 5 times in the last 2 years, and I don't know that they are 100-year floods, but let's assume for just a moment they are. Since this ad hoc committee had met, things have changed, and they're changing every day, and they're not getting better, they're getting worse. This is a high ground field.
If we have flooding here, everybody ought to be building a big-ass boat.
Yeah, we're going to need an ark. And so I want to explore putting a full-size field here, because I believe the last time we brought a new piece of property into the village to put a field on it was, I'm not sure, but I think it was 1980. So it's not going to happen on a regular basis. We have an opportunity here that if we don't look at it carefully, we may miss an opportunity. And I know that if you ask Jeff Nias, I'll know his opinion on what should be done here. So, Chris, we would greatly appreciate if you could even do some rough and dirty sketch that we could look at by next week, so that we could move this along as quickly and expeditiously as possible, because the people in the audience here are very concerned. They are the people who represent many of the kids, if not all of the kids, who play on these fields, as well as the adults who play on these fields. And I know that we are exceptionally low on the field space that we need. So if you could help us with this, we would greatly appreciate it.
We'll get to work on it.
Thank you so much.
Okay.
Does anyone else have anything before we move on?
I just want to say thank you for answering all my questions, and I really appreciate it. It was such a good job by the engineering department, and I think the conversation was so much better from this plan.
Yep.
Thank you.
We want to produce something that the village is satisfied with. Tooting our own horn, we were very happy with how Habernickel turned out. We're also even more happier how it's been received by the community. We really would like to achieve a similar success at this location. That's our goal.
Thank you, Chris.
Thank you, Chris. And thank you all.
Thank you, Chris.
We will now continue on with the rest of our meeting.
Okay. I'll have Rich Calby come up, Director of Richard Water.
Really?
Our first item is revisions to Chapter 269, Water Emergencies. This is to codify permit conditions that were established during the summer of 2022, placing smart controller exemptions on the same watering time schedule as all automatic systems. There was also a discussion in 2022 to consider limiting the days. So I'll have Rich Calby discuss this further.
Good evening, Rich.
Sorry,
How are
I
you
was just
tonight?
mentioning to Chris that it's pouring outside.
Still?
Flood stage is going up.
Do we have to move
Should
our
we-
cars?
Should we move cars? Are you sure?
Not yet.
Okay, well, let us know, please.
Betty, Rich, what did you do? You drove everyone out.
Okay. So, I guess a couple or three of you recall last year we discussed some changes to the water emergency or water conservation ordinance that the village has had in place for several years now. And the main purpose for that was to place...
Can I just have you speak in the microphone?
Oh, okay.
Thanks.
Is that better?
Yeah.
Yep.
Okay. So the main purpose of that was to place smart controllers in line with the same time frames that all other underground irrigation were subject to. Essentially, prior to this change, smart controllers were allowed to water for a longer period of time in the evening, recommending that we place them in the same time frame as all underground irrigation to make it consistent, and then therefore fair to all the residents, and also help with serving water. So what you have in front of you is an ordinance change that includes that. It also includes some wording change in the definition of smart controller to reference the permit that is required, and it also includes a reference in the times section that includes smart controllers so that they're subject to the 3 a.m. to 7 a.m. restriction that all underground irrigation has. I bring this to you now because it is January. March is coming. Every March we recertify all current smart controller applications, so I'd like to get something in line if there are any changes so that when we notice those current holders of the permits, we can let them know there's a change, and then any future permit applicants would also be subject to that. So with that, I'd be happy to take any questions about that. Or
questions? Anyone?
Well, I just want to say, so I'm glad you put under E, where it would be including smart controllers may only be used between 3 a.m. and 7 a.m. on the permissible day. So you didn't put any specific days, so we can change it from time to time. I would like to start by limiting the people who have smart controllers to the 4 days a week that the odd and even, the residents use. So to try and avoid the people that oversee, just don't pay attention to the smart controller and put it on 7 days a week, whether they need it or not. I know there's a lot of, what was your result? About 50% of the people abide by it and 50% of the people cheat? Is that my memory?
Yeah, and I don't know if that's ever going to change. No matter what you do with the ordinance, unless you have some really solid enforcement.
Well, if you know that they can only water on Tuesday, Wednesday, Saturday, and Sunday, then if if there's patrols out, and they better not see anybody on Monday, Thursday, or Friday watering, or you get a ticket. It's much easier to see who's not following the rules if you give the people with the smart controllers the 4 days that everybody else is allowed to water.
So I wouldn't recommend it for a couple reasons. One, I haven't verified if a smart controller can do that. Smart controllers are set up for the purpose of watering smart and using weather, to control when they water. If you're going to restrict the days, I think it's going to go against what that controller is trying to do. They're certified by EPA for a reason, to save water. Certainly in a drought year, they're going to water more. On a week when it's dry, they're going to water more. To restrict their days, I think you're doing no different than putting them in the same category that everybody else is and almost eliminating the benefit of us trying to get people that have smart controllers.
So is there anything you can recommend to get those 50% of people to be compliant?
More enforcement.
But how do you do enforcement?
It's a secret. Oh, I'm sorry. We go out in the summer, primarily nighttime. We vary the days based on the odd and even schedule. So now that smart controllers will be on that more constrained time frame, we'll also be looking for that. So we'll go out on nights and just make sure nobody's watering before 3 a.m.
But that's all you could do. You can do before 3 a.m. or after 7 a.m. You can't figure out if somebody's bypassing their smart controller and watering on a particular day, as long as it's between.
Correct. We don't have access to going into the home and viewing the controller. I don't know legally if we would have even the right to do that.
I can tell you that my brand, the Rainbird, can be programmed to 4 days a week.
Okay.
Because my husband has made us do it 2 days a week.
Good for him.
Is that then putting it in a manual mode? Is it still working off
No,
the
it's
weather?
not manual. Mm-mm. Nope.
So it's working off of weather and saying it could only water on those 4 days? Okay.
Yep.
Yeah.
I don't know about other brands.
Yeah. Just again, I want to stress, we brought smart controllers into the purview of this ordinance 4 or 5 years ago with the idea that EPA certified them knowing they save 20% of water, on average. Some years they're going to use more, some years they're going to use less, but average 20%. If you start restricting them too much, people are not going to get them.
Not going to use them at all.
Exactly.
Yeah, I'm okay with this as a first step, the 3 to 7 a.m., and you tell us what our savings are.
And I want to say, too, the permit itself still has conditions. There's still the ability, like we did last summer, where in the midst of it, we notified all smart controller permittees and said, we're in a drought. We're revoking or changing these requirements, and now you have to redefine and reset your system. You could still do that. Mm-hmm. And in all the ordinances, if we have to move to a further stage of restriction, if we go to stage 3 or 4, all permits are void. At that time, we're in a true emergency, so everybody has to abide by one rule.
I seem to remember last time you came to testify about this, Rich, we distilled down the numbers that there were something like 300 or so people with smart controllers in our system, and if 50% of them are cheating, that's about 150. We have 21,000 customers. We can spend an inordinate amount of time, effort, and money trying to enforce those 150 people. We have many other people cheating on their water, far more than those involved in smart controllers. For some reason, the focus has turned to this. I am incredibly satisfied with your recommendations on this, and overall, as you've said many times, that smart controllers, generally speaking, over the long term, will save 20% of water. We actually want to encourage people to use smart controllers. Last year we were in a drought, and it didn't work as well. But that was one summer. That's the short term. Over the course of 10 summers or more, it will save more water. I'm fine with exactly what you've recommended.
Rich, I think this is great. Just as usual, I think that we could do a better job of promoting this because the smart controller in this discussion promotes a greater awareness. So I don't know if you want to maybe discuss creating some content around this around the time that the sprinklers are turned on and reminding people in a very palatable way, like, hey, heads up, we have a sprinkler system. I hate it. I don't even want to turn it on anymore. And I probably won't this summer, but sometimes these household reminders like, hey, if you have a smart controller, hey, if you live in an odd, I think we could do a better job because the beauty of this is it creates an awareness. And I think if we use some of our messaging system to get that out there, that would just be better. Because I too support it. I think, you get into an enforcement issue that we just don't want to be in. So it's a good job.
Thank you. And that's coming in a bigger way relative to our PFAS discussion.
Yeah.
So it's going to fit right in there. Yeah, and to Mayor, to your comment, the 50% of the people that did comply and ran their systems the right way, they saved 49% water usage. That was our findings.
That's significant.
The other 50 that didn't apply, they used 51% more. So.
Thanks, Rich.
Thank
I think we can't lose sight of the forest from the trees here. So that's my recommendation, is that we go along with Rich's recommendation.
So we're ready to move forward?
Yep.
Yeah,
Okay.
I agree.
Thank you.
Okay, the
Great.
next item is awarding a contract for pipe appurtenances and service materials. So Ridgewood Water received bids, proposals for pipe appurtenances and service materials. 4 bid proposals were picked up and 3 proposals were submitted. The awarded bid is based upon the low bid total by category on a per unit basis. So there are several different vendors who are being recommended: Ferguson Waterworks of Lakewood, New Jersey, is for clamps, sleeves, and hydrants. Raritan Group, Edison, New Jersey, fittings and hydrants. Capital Supply Construction of Wayne, New Jersey, for pipe, valves, hydrants, boxes, and brass. The funding is in the water utility operating budget. It's total not to exceed $410,000 in this year, and I think that's it.
Questions? Anyone?
Yes. For Section F, boxes, you're going with Capital, and they're not the lowest bidder. So I was wondering why you picked them, why you're recommending them.
There should have been an asterisk by Ferguson. They didn't bid the entire section. If we look back in the attachments. Yeah, it's category F in the attachments. If you follow Ferguson down, they didn't bid items 30 through 33. You're required to bid the entire section. So if they had put pricing in for that, they would have then been higher.
Well, the resolution is saying that F is going to Capital.
Correct. Because they bid the entire section.
Okay.
They're the one highlighted in yellow.
All right.
Hydrants was the only section that you didn't have to bid the entire section.
Okay. Got it.
This is one of the most difficult bids we do, because it's so many different parts.
Yeah. Okay.
Okay.
Everybody good?
Yep.
The next item is awarding a contract under a Sourcewell contract to Granger of South Plainfield, New Jersey, not to exceed $65,000. It's for facilities, maintenance, repair, and operating-related supplies, public safety-related equipment and supplies, accessories and services, and janitorial supplies. And this is out of the 2023 water operating budget.
Questions?
There's just a typo on the last page of the resolution. Under number 2, the word one should be once.
Okay. The next item is awarding contract year 2 of HVAC maintenance. This is under Ridgewood Water and also under general, actually. But in any case, the village awarded the 2-year contract in 2022 for both Village of Ridgewood and Ridgewood Water. This is recommending year 2 to TM. The sole bidder was TM Brennan Services, Inc. of Hamburg, New Jersey, not to exceed $55,000. This comes out of the village operating budget and the water utility operating budget.
Questions?
Could I just ask a question? When you do those combined, do you base it upon square footage? So you divide it that way? What's the calculation?
For this particular maintenance contract, it's based on the number of units and size of the units.
All good?
Yeah.
Okay, the next is award of a professional services contract for hydrogeologic consulting services. This is for the rehabilitation and new well construction projects. Work will include such tasks as permitting applications, replacement well drilling, well repairs, treatment plans, soil and well testing, production plans, and general services to assist with the regulatory compliance and emerging contaminants. This is to award it to WSP USA, Upper Saddle River, New Jersey, in an amount not to exceed $152,000. Funding is in the water utility operating budget.
Questions?
Yes. In WSP's memo to us, it mentions a biofilm condition at the Carr well field. What does that mean? What is it?
So over time, due to the age of the wells, the casing that is inside the well that goes underground will develop a biofilm in it, no different than what would occur in our pipes that distribute the water. When the water comes in contact with the casing, the minerals, bacteria in the water create a film. Same thing happens in your home if you ever cut out a piece of pipe. Over time, we want to treat that well because as we let that biofilm continue to grow, it'll eventually clog the well and limit our ability to pump water out of it. So for this year, we're doing some cleaning of the car wells.
And this bid is $60,000 more than last year's bid, $62,000. Why?
It's $62,000 more than we spent last year. Last year's allotment, I believe, was close to the same, not to exceed, we're proposing this year. But based on the work that was completed last year, we didn't do as much.
Oh.
You know, but we always ask them to provide all the services that we might possibly do for the year. That way we're not coming back to you multiple times each time we have to extend it.
Anything else?
Yeah, in the resolution, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, under the fifth whereas, I don't understand it. It says, whereas the village council is satisfied that the first of WSP USA is qualified to render the services required.
That's a typo.
I don't, so what is it supposed to read?
Firm.
Firm.
Oh.
Yeah, firm.
Duh. Okay, thank you.
Okay. The next.
I'm
sorry.
Yeah, I just have one thing I want to. Rich, can we go back to the 269, the revisions to Chapter 269? Pam just reminded me, because it's not a typo, but in the first sentence of 269:45, it says the village manager is authorized to enforce the provisions of this article and in his discretion. So can we put like in his or her discretion, or
Yes.
in their discretion, or something generic?
His, her.
Yeah, what's that section again? I'm sorry.
It's the first one, 269-45.
Right, I have that
Declarations
correction
of
for him.
emergency.
Okay.
Are we all good?
Yes.
Let's move on.
Thank you.
Thanks, Rich. The next item is under budget. So there are several annual resolutions for interest rates. So the first is interest rates for delinquent taxes and non-payment of other municipal liens. This fixes the interest rate according to the statute and establishes a 10-day grace period for payment of property taxes.
Are these the same interest rates as last year?
It's by statute. Yes, they are the same.
Good. Thank you. Questions?
Same as 10 years ago. So, hasn't changed. The next is Water Department administrative fee. Annual resolution for the payment of an annual maintenance fee for Ridgewood Water calculated by multiplying the assessed value of the properties that Ridgewood Water owns by the current year's property tax rate for the period from January 1st, 2023 through December 31st, 2023. This year, the maintenance fee is based on the land value of $4,538,000.
Questions? Good.
The next item is the annual interest rate for significant sewer discharger fees. This is if the significant sewer dischargers, if they are delinquent in their accounts, it's the same interest rates actually as we charge for everything, except that this provides for a 30-day grace period.
Questions?
I just have a question because I'm new. Do we send a warning when you're delinquent? Or
No.
is it just, okay, just wondering.
The next item is the estimated third quarter tax bills. We have sent out third quarter tax bills for the past, 5, 6, 7 years. And the reason being, this way we are able to pay both the Board of Education and the county their third quarter taxes. Also, it allows us to not have to go out to borrow money for the coverage of those taxes. So it's a beneficial thing, and then it's made up in a future installment if we didn't charge enough, or it's reduced if we charge too much.
Everybody good?
Yep. The next annual item is the water utility interest rates. And this, again, the annual resolution, interest rates for delinquent water bills, and establishes a 30-day grace period.
Same as before.
The next one is awarding contract software for finance department. This is also an annual resolution. It is for the support and maintenance of a proprietary computer hardware and software, and it's awarded to Edmonds and Associates of Northfield, New Jersey, not to exceed $25,000. It's paid through the finance operating budget.
In the therefore clause, it mentions the year 2021. Is that
yeah.
what we're meant to say?
No, it should be 23. Thank you.
While you're at it, in the
Go ahead.
in the second whereas, where it mentions Edmonds and Associates for proprietary, blah,
You're
blah, blah.
right. The
Associates
apostrophe.
doesn't have a.
Correct. I see it. The next one is cost of mailing tax sale notice. This is an annual resolution that allows a tax sale notice to be sent by regular or certified mail in lieu of any 2 publications of the 4 publications required for a tax sale notice, and it allows the tax collector to charge $25 per mailing of each set of notices as provided by statute.
Good.
The next one is authorizing electronic tax sales. This has been the case for the past 3 years at least. It's an annual resolution. It allows a continuation of electronic tax sales. This provides a greater pool of lien buyers, and the electronic tax sale will be held through the services of NJ Tax Lien Investors/RealAuction.com.
Have we done this before? Electronic?
Past 3 years at least.
Great.
The next one is cancellation of tax overpayments and delinquent amounts. This is an annual resolution which allows the tax collector to cancel delinquent or refund overpaid property taxes in amounts less than $10.
Good.
The next item is a cooperative contract. This is the village's water pollution control facility has had difficulties with the mixers for the 2 anaerobic sludge digesters. Each have 3 mixers for a total of 6. 2 of the mixers are currently inoperable. The mixers turn the sludge in the tanks, aiding in its volume reduction by bacteria. Repairing a mixer shaft is a specialty. Working with PVSC Cooperative Purchasing Program, they found a vendor which is Universal Electric Motor. So this is to award a contract to Universal Electric Motor of Hackensack, New Jersey, not to exceed $46,500 per mixer shaft for a total of $93,000, and this is paid through the General Capital Ordinance.
Do they warranty that?
I don't know, I can find out.
Yeah, for that amount of money, I would like to know.
Okay. The next one is refund of escrowed funds for Hopper Ridge. They did a retaining wall replacement project and pond dredging. It's a $5,000 escrow, and also a site improvement performance bond. The engineering division, the planning board, and the building department have all deemed this project satisfactorily complete, so we can release all of this money as well as the performance bond.
That's a good question. How do we leave that with Hopper Ridge with the receptacle for floodwater? Remember they wanted to do that? How do we leave that with them?
Well, we couldn't do it because they had to get their plans in, and we didn't have enough information to be able to provide it to them in the time frame.
Okay.
So they're done with their project, and we did not. Not that we couldn't do it in the future, but
Okay.
at that time, we didn't do it. The next is policy grading pool and pickleball is going to be discussed next week. And then an update to the improvements to public comments. Dylan Hansen is here to give us an update.
Heather, can I just ask a question on
Sure.
the grade and pool? So on the first page, where it says non-resident seasonal membership towards the bottom, where it says senior,
Right.
early discount, non-applicable,
Right.
regular season, NA, shouldn't that have a dollar figure?
I don't think they allow it, but I'll find out. They're going to bring back a revised schedule of fees, so I'll ask about that.
Okay, and then again on the next page, same thing with non-resident seasonal membership under seniors. It has nothing.
Yeah, I have to find out. Okay, Dylan.
I'm good. All right. Hello. So I typed up a quick memo. Good evening, everybody. I got some prices on the equipment. I did not make it out to the county yet to take a tour yet, so I'm trying to reach out to the contact there to take that tour. But I did reach out to 2 different companies, so I'm arranging for them to come down to see what we have and see what they recommend as well. It's not the same company I dealt with. These are 2 new companies. One's on a co-op and one's on state contract. So I'm waiting for them to find out when they're going to arrange to come down to see what we have and what they recommend to resolve this. But I did get a pricing on lapel mics. I got pricing on the audio board to accept the lapel mics and the current setup that we have, an additional amplifier and speaker, and also I got an estimate on install from one of the local vendors here, what they said it should cost around. When I went down over to Guitar Center, I was talking to their audio engineer, and he was giving me ideas of what we should do. So that's how I got this pricing. As you see, we're for about 90% of the way with the hybrid. The feed that's going out, I haven't seen any complaints yet. It looks like everything's good on the outside. I do have to resolve the echo. When we tested it, it wasn't that loud like it is in a live environment. So I think I have a couple ways to resolve that before the next meeting too. So that's a good thing. Does anybody have any questions?
I want to go with a comment. So I'm so thrilled. I'm so appreciative. It's just so many of the little things. The clock. Eileen, you crushed it with the remote. I think this whole experience was so great. And what I'm interested in is what it sounds like out there. So I'm wondering if tomorrow we should call some of the people. I mean, I would be willing to call people and see how the sound was out there. To me, it actually sounded better up here, and nobody was like, sometimes people tell me to speak louder. So I thought the whole thing was great. I think I'm just very appreciative for the direction this is headed. I'm interested in all of it. This is clearly money, so I'd love to get feedback on that. I have no problem with the lapel mics, but there's some bigger numbers here, so I'd love to get a sense of what people thought. But that's it.
And I echo exactly what you said, which is it is worth every dollar that we need to spend to get this right. But let's find out if we need to spend it, because you have tweaked the system such that we may be pretty good now. And if we are, then maybe we don't have to spend additional money. But if we do, then I definitely want to go there. So I think we should reach out to the people that we know who are sitting in the audience and get some feedback, because we can always do this down the road, but before we spend money now, again, because these are bigger dollar items. So, by the way, you did a great job on all of this, and I said it before, but Siobhan, thank you so much for bringing this to the council's attention on your very first day, and 3 weeks later, we did not have people in the audience straining and saying, what was it you said? Please speak into the mic. And they're justified when they say it, but tonight it seemed like it went pretty well. So thank you both, really.
Yeah, I want to thank my team too, Mark and Gabriella, as well as Signal. They did so much work for me over the past couple of weeks, and they were great about everything. Rich down at Signal and his team were great.
Yeah, the clock especially is great, and also I want to say what they did, echo what they said. It really is an improvement. I am interested also to hear, I did notice folks were not straining. They seem to really be hearing things and reacting to things they didn't like, and which was normally not a good thing. But for us, it tells us they can actually hear us. So if there's a way to maybe, before we spend any more money, poll the folks that are here, or maybe next time, see if it's gotten better, then I think maybe we just leave well enough alone. I did, though, like Paul, your actual echo, you were having like a Luke Gehrig moment going on.
It was just at the end.
Yeah, I don't know. Either way, though, I mean, it was a minor glitch. I'm sure it sounds like we can fix that, but other than that, really, really well done, Dylan.
Yeah, I have a couple of theories for the echo, so I think I can resolve that.
Did you tweak these mics?
A little bit.
Yeah.
Because I noticed a difference that before I felt that I had to really get close.
Right.
And now I don't think I need to as much. So again, and maybe you have one or two tweaks in your pocket before we spend any more money.
All right, well, the manual is about yay thick, so I haven't gotten through it all yet. So I'm only reading certain parts of it to see if I can do certain things myself.
If you could finish that by next week, we'd appreciate it.
And I love the podium over there. Now, are you going to have to keep moving it for court? Is that what they want it?
I'm going to talk to the court administrator to see if it would be okay to leave there, but I'll see her tomorrow. She's in. So I'll ask her if we can keep it there and how the judge feels about it as well.
Okay. And then the last question I had, I noticed every single caller, of course, was not seen. Is that their choice? Whether
Yes.
So everybody chose not to have the camera on?
Yes. And then the people that called in, they didn't raise their hand. So I'm also going to put instructions up. We're working on a webpage about the council meeting so we can add in all the details from the channels it's on, the Robert rules, the hybrid meetings, all the information. But we want to also let them know that they have to hit a certain button on the phone in order to raise their hand. It does tell them when they first dial in, if you want to raise your hand, press, I forget what number it was off the top of my head, though.
Can the instructions say, we prefer to see you, but if you don't want to be seen, we understand?
And you know what? And I think that we can ask.
Yeah.
That we have gone the extra mile to make it more accessible. And if you can't do it or prefer not to, that's fine. But we would appreciate seeing the people who call in. And that's all.
Yeah.
And we will ask and see what kind of response we get.
Thank you.
And then, Dylan, you feel comfortable with the changes to Ridgewood Rules of Order, and then we can circulate that for next week?
Yeah, I got everything from them. It's already up on the news feed. We're going to make it a permanent home on the page,
Okay.
as
I
well
was
as
just
council.
waiting to hear back from the council, because I
Yeah.
sent it to everyone. I don't know if any of you commented.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think if you could, so I think I heard from Matt, then I heard from Heather, and then it came back to you. If you could, can you put that in both Word and PDF and cycle it through the council again with the changes?
I did.
Oh, I just wasn't on
sent
the
it.
recycling.
Yeah, I received it.
Yeah.
Today?
it
I
was
haven't
sent.
had a chance to read it,
Okay.
but
It was,
I received
yeah.
it.
Okay.
No, I think
Maybe you left me off on the re-kick out.
I thought
It's
you
okay.
were on, but I'll check.
But if we could do that, that'd be great. And then the one thing I do want to say is this kind of funny story that I'm not going to tell you who in my family, but raise your hand. We might want to say raise your digital hand, because sometimes people are
Well, and
waving.
actually
then-
somebody did.
And
Somebody
so
did, yes.
It always is
We're
like,
new at this.
No. So it always cracks me up to think of my family member waving at a webinar, and I was like, no, it's this. So.
Can the hybrid instructions be on each agenda? Because people generally, if they're home, they're going to go to the website, pick up the agenda, see if they want to comment, and the
It's going to be the same for every single meeting. So where did you put it?
Right now, if you click on the calendar event for the meeting, it's right there, and then it's right underneath the agenda. So you'll have the link for the agenda, and you'll have the hybrid link and everything right there on the calendar event.
I agree with Pam, if we could indicate where the placeholder is. If you don't want to put all that copy on it, you need to indicate on the agenda that it's in the calendar, because it's counterintuitive.
Okay.
It's two places to look for one set of
Or
information.
a link that says instructions for remote access.
All right.
Good.
Something like
Because
that.
it's static, right? It's the same thing on every
the
agenda.
same.
It just goes into the template, and if you nail it once, it's just the same thing, repeat every agenda.
Yeah, I don't see a problem with that, right?
That's fine.
At the last meeting, you were talking about, or somebody mentioned, is the problem in the mics or is it in the speakers? Were you able to parse that?
I did turn down the speakers on the top, and I increased the speakers in the front and back a little bit on the amplifier, so we were just playing around with some of the tweaks. But I do want to get an audio engineer in here, definitely, to say, yeah, you should do this, or no, do it this way, because you'll get better use out of the equipment.
The sound is absolutely clearer. I mean, I can hear you better. We don't have to say, please speak into the mic. We didn't have to say it once to any of the people who came up for public comment. And like I said, if I'm sure you're going to finish that book, by the weekend. But it's dramatically better. So, I think we're in pretty good shape. Like I said, we'll call several of the people we know who attended tonight and see what they think about it. Good. Thanks, Dylan.
So I'd like to thank Dylan, too. I agree with you. I think that more of you are speaking into the microphone, which is important, and so I think that helps, too. And I hope we don't have to spend the money for the mics, lapel mics, because honestly, if you speak into the microphone, you can usually be heard. But I think also the sound, whatever you did, is great, because I could hear everything, too.
Oh, yeah.
Thank you.
Good.
Thank you,
Great.
Dylan.
I will now open public comment for the end of the evening. It can. Thank you.
Oh, over there.
We moved it.
Don Delzio, 636 Upper Boulevard, Ridgewood. I do agree, the acoustics are dramatically better, but when you're home on hybrid access, as I was, if the speaker is not directly next to the microphone, the acoustics are not as good on the flow through to the website, just as an aside. But I was home on hybrid access, and I heard the mayor's impassioned plea for Chris to put poor Jovan on a treadmill and make him work overtime. Those documents exist, and I have them right here. There are drawings done more than a decade, Lorraine. I can help you with the math here, because the first document that I'm holding in my hand here is from 2012. So 2012 to 2023, Lorraine, is more than a decade, just to help you with that aspect that you were struggling with before. So I have two drawings here, both of which show the full-size baseball field as originally conceived in the original plan, and I can either give them to you or I'll take it upon myself to deliver them to Chris tomorrow so as to make the Friday packet.
I think that if you give them to Heather,
You can give it to me, and I will make sure that he
she
gets
can
it.
be trusted to
Yeah,
give it
I can.
to
I will.
Chris.
Thank you.
Those two drawings, again, 2012 and 2015, show exactly what you asked for.
Don, thank you so much.
Thank you, Dylan.
Have a nice evening. And Dylan, I cannot get into the laptop. Here we go. Good evening, Mr. Hallaby.
I'd like
Welcome.
to show my pretty face, but I somehow can't turn the video on. But in any case, at least you can hear me. As far as Shedler is
Could you please
concerned,
give your name and address?
on Franklin Avenue here in Ridgewood. In looking at Shedler, I urge you to think of your legacy, not just your children going to high school, but your children's children in 5, 10, 15, 20 years as to what they will have in Shedler. To repeat myself, and I apologize for repeating myself, but if the Harvard Kennedy School were to write a case study about a mismanaged project, they would use Shedler. And I was kind of disappointed this evening in a sense that so many of the questions really delved into the minutiae and instead of looking at the big picture. Basically, I'd like to ask what can be done to take the Shedler out of the house away from SHPO. We gave it to them, and somehow they're calling all the shots. And what is it we can do to take it back? And secondly, if we can take it back, what is it we can do to really try to put in as many fields as we can? We can have a ball field, a soccer field, full size. You know, I'm not sure what you do with a soccer field that's 2/3 the size. I mean, this is for kids. I mean, for little kids, I have no idea. So you can have a full size. You can even have a baseball field in it. And also, when it comes to Shedler, and this is where it's too bad that the people in the audience could not ask Chris questions. But when he talks about a rain garden, it sounds so good. Believe me, a rain garden within a year will be a receptacle for a lot of garbage. Who's going to clean it? Things accumulate in it. Secondly, things like the berm, and this is something I go on and on and on about it. The berm, just before the election, someone made sure they mowed it and they spread mulch over it to make it look good. They planted these silly trees on top, which will never, never, ever cover the space because they grow tall, they don't grow fast. And also, the size of the berm, believe me, in 6 months, they'll be covered with weeds, and short of letting them go natural, if you will, which do nothing with them, it'll be a great expense to start mowing them and taking care of it, if you will. So what I urge you to do is go back to the drawing board, think of your legacy, and think of the fact this has been the worst mismanaged project in Ridgewood, and believe me, in the last 6 years, it's been one mismanaged project after another. You owe it to yourself, you owe it to your children, you owe it to the residents of Ridgewood to do a good job on Shedler. And I really want to thank Paul for the way you led the meeting, and I apologize for stating not true when one of you was stating things, in my opinion, that were not true. I couldn't hold myself. And I really want to thank Siobhan for the excellent, excellent job that she did. So let's go back to the drawing board. Let's go back and see what we can do to take the park away from Shedler other than the house. And then also with the house, basically, I want to see, you really have to think outside the box. If they're preserving the house, you can still preserving the house, having spent $2 million on it. $2 million, which is kind of crazy. How many of us live in a $2 million home? And maybe it can be moved to the edge of the property. If you spend $2 million on it, you can spend $100,000 moving it intact, on new foundations, and then allow more room for more things to happen. So please think outside the box and don't get stuck in detail and look at the big picture. Well, thank you very much. And by the way, one last thing, by the way, and I'd like to address this to my friend, the mayor, Paul. As I walked in, a fellow friend of mine put his arm around me and said, "Does the room look brighter, or is it my imagination?" And I said, "Yes, it does look brighter, figuratively, if not literally." Thank you very much, Paul, and thank you to all. Bye-bye.
Thank you, Mr. Hallaby. Don't sign off yet. Are you still there?
I'm here.
Rurik, are you still there?
I'm here, Paul, yes.
Yeah, since you were in the audience, and since you have suggested to us many times that the sound was not good, how was the sound this evening?
The sound was much better, I must admit.
Did you have any trouble hearing anything?
I could hear people much better, but yet again, I say, continue speaking into the microphone. But the sound was much better.
Thank you so much. Have a nice evening.
Thank you, Paul. Thank you.
And Dylan, do we have anyone else in the queue? Catherine, welcome.
So I'm going to hit my video. Can you see me now?
Not yet.
Okay, so I just want to, again, Catherine Schmidt, 123 South Irving Street. I just want to give my feedback on the meeting. It was, for all the meetings I've ever attended or watched on TV, it's the first time I heard everything going on in the meeting. So thank you, thank you, thank you. That was great. I didn't even need closed captions to understand what was going on. I could see the maps, which is something I've never been able to see. So this was, it almost makes me want to only come to these meetings remotely because I could see and hear so much better. On the issue of, I don't know how to get my video on. I just clicked something that said video, but clearly you're not seeing me. So there's something that needs to be worked down there. And I'd also say that the number and the password for the meeting was not on the agenda because I had to go searching around through all kinds of Facebook and emails. So it would be wonderful, even if it's the same one all the time. Sometimes people only come to one meeting, so it would be great to just put that identifying number and password on every agenda. But anyway, I just want to say that this was great, and you don't have to call me tomorrow because I'm telling you that it really worked.
Thank you so much for your feedback, Catherine. Really appreciate it.
Okay.
Dylan? Anyone else? Yeah, I heard it. Hi, Denise. Name and address, please.
Denise Lima, 319 East Glen Ave. Yes, the audio was great online. I would just say that Siobhan and Matt, you need to speak into the microphone a little bit closer. Other than that, sorry to point the two of you out, but otherwise it went really well. So accolades on that. I'm going to focus my conversation back on Shedler again. I heard Evan and Lorraine and others talk about the sense of urgency of getting something done. So when I hear comments about going back to the drawing board, full fields, reverse out from SHPO the land, it just seems like it's going to take a very long time again. And I think the sooner we get something up and running would be great. I was extremely disappointed that through the conversations tonight, both by the residents that appealed to a larger field and every single council member, nobody mentioned the neighbors that are going to be impacted by these changes. Not a single person. And I know when something needs to be submitted to the planning board because somebody's making a development change, there's a radius and notification that, hey, this is going to be going on. And before we rush to be doing anything on the next week's meeting, all of those neighbors should be notified in writing that there's a proposal, and I understand there's a need for it, I think we get it, but those neighbors deserve to be notified and understand what the ramifications are. A larger field, much more parking, overflow parking into their streets, more traffic, more risk and concerns of kids, eventually lighting, right? And just like Maple Field, the lighting ended up going on. I don't think that those residents know what's coming and they need to be notified. So I was highly disappointed that nobody said that. I went through all those pages that Chris presented, and there needs to be metrics, measurements, dimensions, I think he mentioned tonight, which I look forward to. There's none of that on there. We cannot tell how far the entrance is from Route 17 as people are whipping down doing 50 miles an hour. They may be accelerating fast, but it takes 175 feet, according to the New Jersey standards of safety, to slow down. Is that enough time for that driveway? Now, a 2015 safety is probably old. I mean, we should, with all the kids that are going to be there, especially if it's a larger field, we owe it upon ourselves to do an updated safety survey and try and get some greater information on that. So, you know, the parking, the measurements is very close. Those 7 spaces are close to the old tree. The drip lines, I don't know that that's going to be sufficient, but I can't tell, nobody can tell if there's no dimensions on the site plans. It's hard, nobody should be making decisions without dimensions. And then, you know, trees, cutting down trees, more trees, bigger field, more trees, and then cutting down the sugar maple. And, you know, what happened to the Shade Tree Commission and trying to preserve some things? And while the green giants are hardy, I think, Pam, that was a great catch about singular species and the potential issue. And those green giants will need more than 1 week's worth of watering. I have them all down my property, and in the beginning it was 2 or 3 times a week. And this year it was so hot, I lost 3 of them. And so watering really needs to be considered around all of the park property. And I don't know what that's going to cost or what Chris factored in, but certainly we should think about that. So I'm immersed in Shedler, have a vested interest in it. I look at the plans very, closely, been looking at it for a while. I think we should just move on with what we have. Otherwise, it's still going to be years lightly away. And please notify the neighbors. Thank you.
Thank you, Denise. And I want to just quickly point out, thank you, first of all, for your feedback on our sound. I can't pass up this moment to say that Lorraine was very clear about her concern for the neighbors. And she mentioned it on more than one occasion. And for sure, we will be reaching out to the neighbors tomorrow to let them know that this is in play. There are no proposals for a larger field. It is something that we want to examine. So, Dylan, do we have anyone else? Deanne? Deanne? Deanne, are you there? Deanne? Lillian. Lillian. I'm guessing I know which Lillian that is.
Lillian, you have to unmute yourself.
I'm unmuted.
Oh, there you go.
Okay, so Lillian Blood, 250 North Maple Avenue. I want to also say the sound was perfect. I mean, I'm sitting here at home on my couch, and I can hear and I could see everything. To get on was so simple. I just went to the calendar, saw the meeting, pressed the button, and there I was. Or there you were, actually. So it was really great. And the other thing, now you just quickly popped in while I'm talking, but otherwise I just see a white space, but that's okay. I don't think we should rush into something that we've been waiting 13 years to do something about. I would feel that we should really find out whether the property itself needs to be historic. There doesn't seem to be any definite things about when it was turned to be historic. Initially, it was just the house, and now it's the whole property. So I think there's something that is missing that we need to find out. So I'd rather wait 6 months or whatever, find out why, then we can move ahead with what we really need. I don't think that we need a small field. I think we do need the big field. Some of the people who were speaking about, the small children bring more people to the meetings or to the games than the older children do. So let's take our steps slowly. Let's not try to rush this in all of a sudden because we feel we've waited 13 years to do something. Let's take the right steps and move forward with thinking about it and not just trying to get it done. And that's all. And I will just say, the meeting was great. I loved the way everyone was given a chance to talk, everyone was listened to. It went so well. So thanks again.
Thank you for your comments, Lillian. And we have no one waiting in the queue. We have completed our first remote access hybrid meeting. Let's give everyone a round of applause. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Jen.
This is terrific. And so now we will entertain a motion to go into closed session.
Before you do, sorry, go ahead.
I had just a couple things in response
so
to
sorry.
public comments. So sorry. So just because one of the things I want the public to understand that this is a work session, so that means it is a discussion, and I'm really grateful to my council colleagues. I thought this was a very collaborative discussion, and there were a lot of elements to it. So nothing's been decided. To address Rurik's issue, because this is important with the youth sports, small-sided typically relates to the number of players. The smaller kids, they find that they learn at a better rate because they're less coordinated with fewer players. So 5v5 would be for like kindergarten through second grade, 8v8. That is a small-sided field. Full-sided goes to full squad, like, I'm a full-on football field and I'm going that way. I believe the rain gardens are also not just decorative, they're there to deal with some of the runoff water, so they're necessary because we haven't dropped any receptacles. And I agree, Lorraine really represented the neighbors, but I think we all did. The ultimate goal of this park was to integrate that side of Route 17, developing this clamored for park, which is what all 5 of us are trying to do, is for those neighbors and the town. And, but she definitely did talk about them outright expressly, and you get your gold star, Lorraine.
Matt?
Yeah, just briefly, had nothing to do with the meeting. I just wanted to publicly thank the council, thank all the members of the village staff, Heather, Dylan, everybody for their kind words, thoughts, and their appearances with regard to my father's passing 2 weeks ago. It was greatly appreciated. A gift was sent, which was wonderful, and I just wanted to thank everybody publicly. It meant a lot to my family and me, and we greatly appreciated it. So thank you very much.
Anyone else? Great. I will now take a motion to go into closed session.
The resolution has to be read.
Be it resolved by the Village Council of the Village of Ridgewood that the Village Council meet in closed session on January 25th, 2023 at 7:30 p.m. or as soon thereafter as the matter on the agenda can be reached, and that said closed session be held in the 4th floor caucus room of Ridgewood Village Hall, 131 North Maple Avenue, Ridgewood, New Jersey. And be it further resolved that the matters to be discussed in closed session are limited to personnel, EMS, and legal PFAS litigation. These matters are allowable. I'm sorry, that's not correct. No, it should be
Review of Faulkner Act.
Personnel, EMS, and legal review of Faulkner Act. These matters are allowable under NJSA 10:4-12 et sec, and be it further resolved that the minutes of this meeting shall be made available to the general public when such matters have been deemed completed by resolution of the Village Council. May I have a motion?
So moved.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Anyone opposed?